It's showtime.
Hi there, long-time viewer, first-time caller.
Am I live now?
Sorry for this disguise.
Okay, so you're not sick.
No, I'm not sick. Sorry. I work in tech, and I don't want people knowing I'm a doomer.
What I'd like to focus on is drafting a really strong and convincing experience of takeoff.
We're totally in the Centaur world, right?
I was just wondering if rationalists are temperamentally sort of not suited to political action. Maybe you need to do like chaining yourself up to the side of a tree like the environmentalists do.
Why would it not be able to protect against these hacks if it's that capable?
All right, we got a well-known guest. We got a heavy hitter in the waiting room. Everybody say hello to... It's showtime. Hey everybody, welcome to the Do Debates Q&A live stream coming at you live from Saratoga Springs, New York. I'll just wait for a few people to file in. All right, first 7 people, welcome. Feel free to type in the chat. And I'm going to go say hi to the audience on X. You guys are watching this from X. Thank you. That's a growing platform for this show. All right, if you're waiting for the Q&A to start, one really important thing you could do is if you go to my profile, x.com/Liron, you can see my latest McDonald's food review. I just tried the Big Arch yesterday, filled up more than half my day's calorie allocation, McDonald's Big Arch, and my overall verdict on the McDonald's Big Arch is it's a quality sandwich. It's a quality sandwich. I think everybody should try the McDonald's Arch once in their life because it's the best sandwich from the most successful cooked food company in the world. You got to try the McDonald's Arch. Yep. All right. So everything looks to be working live on YouTube, live on X. So the way we're going to do this is the same thing we do every month. So feel free to type any questions or comments in the chat. And also I'm going to open up people who want to come on the live stream. If you're an early bird and you want to come participate in the live stream, I'm going to send you a join link. So here in the YouTube chat, anybody can click this join link and you'll get in the waiting room. First come, first serve, but as usual, strip club rules apply. So if anybody uses the YouTube feature to toss in some cash, then you'll get to the front of the queue to say your question or contribute or have me read out a statement or whatever you want to do. All right, we've got to keep the lights on here. The rent on this studio is pretty expensive. So everybody go to YouTube and click the button to send us money. Much appreciated. All right, let's see what we got here. If you guys are wondering what the latest news is, we've got warning shots dropping on Sunday. Me, John Sherman, and Michael. And we're covering one of the craziest weeks in a while. You know, Claude code, everything getting really agentic. Obviously, the Anthropic situation. It's definitely one of the spiciest warning shots episode. Taped that earlier today. Okay, let's see. So, Pun Master is asking, how's your Friday going? It's going good. It's going good. You know, getting in the swing of things. The studio's mostly up and running, and you know, also using Claude code. My day job. Yeah, it's all going reasonably well. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Yeah, producer Ori is saying fancy marble desk. That's right. It's marble, everybody. Yeah. It's not exactly, but it looks good. It looks professional. Let's see. Somebody saying, Sammy Koreshi saying, Pause, I'm marching in London tomorrow, King's Cross. Please shout out. Okay, if you're in London, you got to get in on this. All right. Somebody saying, are the Great Lakes on the map really as correct as they can be given the resolution? Good question. Yeah, the Great Lakes. I don't know. I'm gonna say probably. Maybe not. Somebody's saying, I hope the next warning shots is still timely / updated with whatever happens with Pete Hegseth's ultimatum. Yeah, for sure. Somebody saying debate with a worthy successor guy, and what's your take on this movement? I think you're talking about Daniel Fagella. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's a smart guy. Worthy successor. I guess the idea is that it's not going to literally be humans dominating the universe in 100 years or 1,000 years or whatever. So who will it be? Which successor will be the worthy one? I haven't looked into the movement in a ton of detail. I am a transhumanist, so like I definitely agree that like literally humans that are unrecognizable, that are literally humans that have no difference from the humans of today seems unlikely. It seems like we will be able to rebuild our exterior from scratch So I do think some kind of successor is going to happen. And should it be worthy? Sure. So in principle, I think worthy successor is a similar idea to transhumanism, which I'm for, but I think it's really easy to screw up the details. So it's nice to always have a backup. It's nice to always be able to hit the eject and be like, no, I want to be an ape again. I want to be biological again. I screwed things up too bad. I want to undo. All right. We got a question here from Ron Brunn. One sec. An actual question. He's saying, so did you update your opinion on AI 2027 in any way? Is the prediction so far more on track than not? Yeah, great question. And also, I actually asked a very similar question to fan favorite guest of the show, Stephen Burns. You guys remember Stephen was on the show? He was on the show like 6 months ago. I brought him back to the show. So it's the same question. I was like, hey, what do you think is an accurate prediction? Do you think AI 2027 basically nailed it? Steven wasn't tracking things too closely because he's more thinking about like longer term theoretical research. Like he's kind of thinking all the way toward recursive self-improvement, like endgame. But from my perspective, I'm like, yeah, it's totally going on track. I mean, what else could you expect? If you remember what it said would happen in late 2025, early 2026, it was like, yeah, there's going to be agents that don't fully work, but then they'll start working better. I feel like that is what happened in the nutshell. Like the agents only kind of worked and you had to keep kind of kicking them, you had to keep kicking their butt. So you keep slapping them into shape and now you don't have to slap them as much. And I'm going to put a prediction on the record that in a couple months, you're going to have to slap the agents less, right? They're going to have a longer runtime. They're going to do bigger pieces of the job, which is insane. If you haven't heard me say this yet, like I've personally been using Claude Code and I've been blown away and I'm not the only one. We covered this on Warning Shots. Andre Carpathy was like, yep, guys, I'm calling it. Like programming is totally different. It's nothing like it's ever been before. As a lifelong programmer, I've been programming computers since I was 9 years old. I've been programming computers my whole professional career. I don't really think that I'm a software engineer at this point because I don't really write the code. It's more like I'm somebody who knows what a software engineer is capable of so that I can just tell an AI to go be a software engineer. That's what I am at this point. So that's pretty crazy. Like I never in my life thought that I would be at this point. So it's pretty great. And I know it happened to the writers, right? It happened to the writers 2 years ago where they're like, oh, I'm not really a writer anymore from just telling the AI what to write. Michael Ellsberg came on the program and said that. And now I'm saying it about software engineers. So it's like, the ability to extrapolate is pretty powerful. Like if you can just extrapolate, I'm going to guess that other people are going to be out of a job. I bet that the job of an entrepreneur to start a business from scratch, I bet that's going to be automatable too pretty soon. Take the next question here. Okay. Oh, whoa, we got a 10 British pound donation here. All right. Thank you, Nova Omeg 4. All right. So Nova is saying, most people engage and are more easily persuaded if you appeal to their emotions. Have you considered that approach? And wear the Doggo Doom Debates plushie merch. All right, great questions. Let's start with the important question about the dog, Doom Dog. Let's say hi to Doom Dog. What's Doom Dog up to right now? Oh, hey, Doom Dog is currently deciding whether to pull the lever to pause the Doom train. Doom train's heading into the fire. Doom Dog, pull the lever. Doom Dog, pull the lever. Yeah, I haven't gotten the plushie in the store yet. Stay tuned for that. All right, so the other question is, have I considered appealing to people's emotions? Well, I don't know. I mean, how, right? It's like when I get on the show, I usually just, I guess I do speak logically. I'm just like, hey, you want to see the asteroid? Okay, here's a telescope. Take a look. Okay, there it is. Like, that's what I see myself as doing, where the asteroid is like, yep, extrapolate the last couple of years. It just extrapolates to AI taking over and disempowering humanity. That's generally my MO, is to just put it that way. I'm not really like an emotional guy, right? And I'm not really a guy who makes emotional appeals. It's just not really my thing. And, it's a big internet out there, right? So there's a lot of people who I think are in a better position to play the whole emotional appeal card. I think playing to my strengths is more of just being very clear of like, this is the threat I see. I don't think other people are giving the threat its proper due. Like that's basically my role, right? I feel like I have to factor out where my role begins and ends. Yeah, Punmaster is saying, reminds me of Liron's emotional condom comment in an old Doom debate. Yeah, I mean, if you look at my personality, I think that things tend to emotionally hit me less than average. And I use the analogy of an emotional condom. I think it's related. It's on the Asperger spectrum, however you want to diagnose it. I don't want to cause any offense to people who have like debilitating autism spectrum disorder because I think I'm obviously high functioning. Okay, so I don't want to lump myself in with like severely disabled people, but I think that's how I would describe myself. It's like an Asperger personality type. Let's see. All right, I see somebody is taking me up on my offer to speak in real time, so we'll get to you soon. Let me read some of your comments here. Questions and comments. All right. Somebody saying, why do you think LLMs will achieve true agency? The world's top mathematicians, such as Terence Tao, say it is mathematically impossible for LLMs to be self-directed. I don't know about that. I don't think Terence Tao said that, because I've listened to Terence Tao a little bit recently. Obviously a smart guy. I don't know why he's not focusing more on AI doom. I don't think that he said that it's impossible for LLMs to be self-directed. Okay, Josh Thor is saying, why is your P-doom so low? Yudkowsky seems much higher, and you consider yourself a Yudkowskian. Daniel Cucatello is a 70%. I don't know. It's just, I just think that 50 versus 70, it's really just more like, there's just so many things that can happen, right? Like, I don't object to somebody. I think I've covered this on the show. Like, I don't really object to somebody who has a 70% PDOM or even a 30% PDOM. It's like, I'm somebody who deals with order of magnitude. That's just my MO. Is like, I look at something, I analyze it a bit, and then I'm like, okay, this is roughly in this order of magnitude. It's roughly between 10 and 90. I'm just not passionate about sifting out 50 versus 70. I'm like, look, I got it. It's between 10 and 90. And the way I run my life is just sometimes I notice that certain wins are big. So sometimes I'm like, oh, if I go out of my way to do this task, then I could save like $10,000. Okay, sure. But then if it's like, oh, I go out of my way and I save $50, I'm like, no, screw that, right? Because by the time I'm like paying attention to it, it's like not really going to be worth it. That's generally how I think, right? Is I just try to focus on like a few big wins, and I don't think nailing down whether the probability is 50 or 70 is going to be a big win in terms of like how hard it is to do. Right? So I could put a lot of effort and I could increase from 50 to 70 or go the other way, but like what does that matter, right? All right. Let's see what else we got here. Podmaster saying, my P-Doom is 0, but I still want to buy a Doom Dog. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Doom Dog in the merch store. I hear you. Somebody saying, oh, new place to frown is saying, hey, Liron, it's Hugh Chungus from the Destiny Discord. Sorry for missing the convo and apologies for the event not being set up. I gave back the details and some personal stuff, break the details. Yeah, no worries. Hey, if you guys want me back again, I'm happy to do it. It was a good time. He's a smart guy. He's got a smart audience. All right, let's see. We got somebody in the arena who wants to go head to head or just ask a question. All right, let's say hi to Tom. Hey, Tom. Welcome.
Hi,
you got a question? Yes.
Yeah. My question is, sorry for this sort of disguise, just because of like, I work in tech and I don't want people knowing I'm a doomer, that sort of thing. I was just wondering if
Oh, okay, so you're not sick.
kind of people who pay attention to. No, I'm not sick. Sorry. Sorry for the delay, by the way. There's a little delay, I think, in the voice or something.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I'll just say my question. I was just wondering if rationalists and the kind of people who pay attention to AI doom are temperamentally sort of not suited to effective political kind of action, because they kind of see protesting as being like low status or like, undignified or like not intellectual. But maybe you need to do that kind of, like chaining yourself up to the side of a tree like the environmentalists do in order to show that your conviction is strong enough, which, persuades the masses or something like that. Anyway, that's the question.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It comes up pretty regularly. Have you seen the latest thing that's going down? I think Michael Trotzi and Guido Reichstatter, I think, are the two guys doing it. They're like marching, they're fasting for, I don't even know, like a week while marching 70 miles or something like that. Have you seen that?
No, I've not, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And before they did a hunger strike, I think Guido went like 30 days, which is pretty impressive. You got to hand it. Like, that guy really is thinking along your same lines. He's almost chaining himself to a tree. He's doing similar kinds of stunts. And, when this first happened on social media, like 2023, when a lot of the doomers like myself, we saw ChatGPT and we started getting all doomy all over Twitter. And everybody's like, oh, come on, you guys don't believe that, right? Because if you did believe it, wouldn't you, like I said, chain yourself to a tree, or wouldn't you go, commit arson in a bunch of places, right? Or wouldn't you start going on a murdering rampage? And I was like, would you really do that? Like, think about it for 2 seconds. Like, does that really make sense? So it's like, thinking that we're going to be doomed soon just doesn't suddenly make you go that crazy. I don't know, but if you have a specific suggestion, happy to hear it.
I don't know. It seems like maybe Christianity, they had martyrs, they had people like willing to die for their beliefs, and maybe that's what you need for a big movement. So that just occurred to me. I don't have any sort of specific suggestions, but I'm just wondering if it's something you've thought about before.
No, that's a good point. I think a lot of us are willing to die for our beliefs, but we just don't want to die pointlessly, right? So if it was like, hey, all you have to do is 100 people from the doomer community just have to shoot themselves, and then all the AI companies will stop building AI, I'm sure we'll find 100 volunteers. I would even consider volunteering.
Wow. Well, yeah, anyway, I didn't have anything else to sort of debate about. It was more like a question and answer than a sort of debate topic. I think I've got some delay problems anyway, so you should probably take.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming by. Very interesting question. This also gets to another discussion. Oftentimes people say things like, man, if everybody knew how much damage these AI companies were doing, they would come torch the place. And then other people will rise up and be like, look at these doomers advocating for violence. And it's like, look, there's a reason violence is just not done much in society, besides by like criminals who can't think more than 2 seconds into the future. Violence, it's just when you have a society that has like law enforcement and a bunch of people, power is spread to a bunch of different people. So one group being violent generally just gets thrown in jail or put down. So this whole idea of like, if only we would just be violent, then that would truly show what we mean. It's like, maybe, it kind of worked for Martin Luther King Jr., right? Because he would make all these spectacles and they would get on TV. But the mechanism of action, from what I can understand of like the civil rights movement, the nonviolent protests back then, I think the mechanism there was that people would watch it and they would feel guilty. Right. So it's specifically because he created a spectacle that made people feel guilty. Like, man, do we really want to keep doing that to these black people? Like, keep treating them so badly, so brutally, just because they want to come eat lunch at the same cafeteria or whatever? I think that's what helped him make his mark, and then be like, oh, well, I know black people in my life, so why are we like segregating them? Somebody can correct me if I'm not understanding this right, but his particular type of civil disobedience is like, yeah, we'll get thrown in jail a bunch, and that's the thing, is they were nonviolent. Right. So I actually do support nonviolent protests. I like what Guida is doing. For example, he's been totally nonviolent with all of his hunger strikes and his protests in front of AI companies. So I do support that. But then the idea of like, oh, well, what if we get violent? It's just like, why? Right? Like, what is that going to accomplish? Because the problem is that the violence doesn't convince people. And then it just turns people away. So I guess that would be the key, right? Is I think that's what Tom was saying. He's like, oh, well, when people see you being violent and lashing out, then they'll think you're serious, and then they'll be convinced that they should take your movement seriously. But yeah, I'm just not really following that logic. As somebody, I normally don't go for recoil exaggeration. I normally don't be like, oh, that's going to backfire. But I just don't think the direct effect of doing it is powerful. I don't think being violent directly accomplishes anything. Okay, actually it does, right? Like, you burn down one data center. Okay, yeah, you've made one little dent, but I just think that dent will wash away very quickly. All right, let's see. Somebody is asking, how do I join the studio here? How do I join the live stream? So let me give you a link. All right, so if anybody wants to come join live, just click that link. I just wrote live call-in the YouTube chat. Give me one sec. All right. Grave Fable 25 is saying, what would you say to someone who thinks the current LLM craze is a dead end and actually slowing down advancement toward actually dangerous AI, thus having a positive effect on our PDUM chances? Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I think there's something to be said that if people work on LLMs instead of the next generation, that is possible, that there's some slowdown there if the next generation is the more dangerous part. But I actually think that when people get really excited about LLMs, it makes people go all over the place. Some people are like, yeah, I'll go optimize the spread of LLM tools. But then other people are like, I want to make what's coming after LLMs, or I want to make better LLMs. And they get all these ideas and they throw a bunch of stuff against the wall. So putting a spotlight on LLMs puts a spotlight on the whole field. So I think there's only a minor effect where it's like cannibalizing efforts to build non-LLMs. And then there's the piece where I actually think LLMs might be a big piece of what's dangerous anyway. Like, it's this is actually an update I've made. I talked about this with Stephen Burns in the episode that's coming out in like 10 days, which is like the agents that are based with LLM at their core, and they're not like fundamentally RL based. They're like LLM cores, and then maybe they do RL VR or like an extra layer of RL at the end, but it's mostly the LLMs. those agents have surprised me in how far they can go. I mean, I'm not super surprised that Claude Code is as good as it is, but I thought maybe this would take a paradigm shift before we would get there. So I'm kind of surprised where I don't feel there's been like a huge paradigm shift, but I feel like the agents are getting super robust. So I think that is a little bit surprising. Like, I didn't think they could necessarily pull that off. And yet here we are. So this idea of like, oh, people can just work on LLMs and we won't be doomed. That may be true for like the ultimate doom of like the AI being so much more intelligent than humanity. But there's also this other doom of like, okay, so everybody else just has what Dario calls geniuses in a data center. And yeah, the geniuses will respond to commands. So like they're aligned to their human master. Let's say best case scenario, I think that's plausible that they'll be aligned to their human master and they'll just be like LLM style geniuses in a data center, which is, I guess, what Dario thinks is really likely to happen. I actually do think that's like a perfectly plausible near-term outcome, geniuses in a data center that take your commands. But now the problem is, okay, so now we have like a bunch of governments and a bunch of people instructing a bunch of geniuses what to do, and the army of geniuses can still like overpower entire nations, even the whole world. So even that doom scenario is pretty scary. Although to be fair, I talked about this with Stephen Burns. I do think that I've been updating where I'm giving a few % more probability to a scenario where it doesn't go completely wild and crazy relative to humans. Like it doesn't boom immediately. And maybe we have like 10 whole years when we're only dealing with the genius in a data center before like the next generation of like insanely sky high AI swoops in and kind of renders everything moot. Maybe we have these 10 years that are crazy, but also kind of good because everybody's rich because there's like so many goods and services being produced so efficiently and there's universal basic income, and this just all happens in 10 years before the real AI comes in. And maybe the real AI never comes because we get lucky on that, right? Like maybe the loop of like using feedback from the world and doing reinforcement learning in a way that's not an LLM, maybe that's delayed for decades. So I guess this would be like my mainline good scenario of not pausing AI and still somehow surviving, is that like this token-based geniuses in a data center AI somehow muddles through. So that's my current good mainline scenario. Feel free to improve it. But when I ran this by Stephen Burns, when we recorded a conversation, he was just like, I'm pretty sure that other AI is coming, because he thinks that something the human brain is doing is already like the kernel of something an AI can do better that it's not doing today. So, I mean, look, it's nice to have a richer world model. I mean, it's nice to have agents that aren't taking over the world, that are responding to your commands. And actually, specifically, do you know how the doomers are always like, we're always pointing out that if you reinforcement learn an agent just to bring you coffee, bringing the coffee might cause ending the world because it wants to make sure nobody can stop it from bringing the coffee. I think we now have a class of agents that we can use to bring the coffee and do agentic tasks like that, right? Building nice software. And we know that that class of agents won't end the world because we know that that class of agents has this core that's just trying to predict the next token. And yes, it's also been consequentialist optimized above that. It's been trained to get outcomes, but it's still not hardcore that it'll run away. So that is an update, right? That's just an update that there's just more stuff we can do before we get to the end game. I'm reading your questions here. Somebody's saying you should make a video on solutions against the doomer outcome. Pretty much everyone agrees, but no one has a robust solution other than slowing down or halting progress. Somebody's saying, yeah, I mean, solutions against the doomer outcome. I mean, look, solutions are hard as part of the problem, right? So I see fear-mongering or raising the temperature as a big part of the solution. So helping other people see, because when you say everybody's concerned, I think you're probably thinking about an in-group or a circle where like, yes, Americans as average or world citizens are somewhat concerned overall, but they don't see it as like super urgent and needs to be paused. So, I mean, that's the first step, right? If everybody's plucking the low-hanging fruit of agitating for strict regulation immediately, and then you're telling me there's nothing else we can do, we'll go from there. Okay. Let's see. Somebody's saying, hey, Liron, I'm curious, what's your most granular picture of current AI capabilities, low-hanging fruit for new capabilities and current bottlenecks, and how that informs your timelines? Yeah, so I did address this a little bit in the last few minutes. Let's see, the overall picture of current capabilities. So it's basically AI 2027, right? Is that like there's all the capabilities that you know and love from last year, except now agents work. And also in the meantime, everything's getting better, right? So the chatbots hallucinate less, they search the web better, right? They pull together better answers from you. They're more handy with multimodal and documents. Just everything is getting really polished and really powerful and hallucinating very little, really fast. And also the agents are starting to work and the time horizon is increasing. I must say I'm impressed by Meter. Like when they first did a time horizon graph, I'm like, is that really a good metric to really capture the essence of AI progress? And I think it's been a pretty good metric to capture the essence of AI progress. It's just like, how long can you stay coherent and get stuff done? Like that, I think that's worked pretty well. And when the meter graph saturated, like sure enough, I just became unemployed as a software engineer. I mean, luckily, I run a company called Relationship Hero, so I'm like at the top. So the only way to replace me is to just compete with me as another company, which I think will happen. But at least I have like another year or whatever. So I get, I'm in the position to benefit, right? So everybody who's at the top of a company, maybe the company was 500 people and it's going to go down to 5 people, but at least those 5 people will have fatter profit margins for a while. So that seems to be what happens, what's happening economically. But yeah, so the question is just like picture of low-hanging fruit or new capabilities and current bottlenecks. So we keep getting incremental releases, right? Like Nano Banana 2, I think, just came out. We're going to be trying that for making thumbnails. And yeah, how does that inform my timeline? So I think it's what I said before, is I think there's this scenario where nobody cracks the next paradigm of AI and yet agents just get as powerful as geniuses in a data center. That is my new update. But I still think literally everything in AI 2027 is super plausible. I think AI 27 is an amazing piece of work that's holding up really well. All right, we got Hugh Chungus joining the stream. Hugh, how's it going?
How's my mic?
I can hear your voice clearly, but there's a lot of background noise. It's not terrible. All right, let's try it.
Okay. Yeah, how's it going? I follow the show a lot. There's a lot of discussions that happen in the Destiny Discord and the Philosophy channel. And yeah, I don't have very structured points to go through, but I think it'd be good to talk about some of the typical arguments that people run down. So you usually say you make a distinction between will they and can they. When people just encounter the doom debate, it's those things are usually always completely tied to each other, and you have to do a lot of work to separate them.
Yeah,
I was just sort of wondering if you had like a strong example that you could use normally to say they just like there's a good case for why they will, like a really strong straight path for why they actually will choose to do that given the capabilities.
Yeah, good question. So there's a few different stops on the doom train on the will they side. Like, okay, let's assume that they can kill everybody, which I think is a pretty strong assumption. It's a pretty strong claim. They can kill everybody, and then it's will they kill everybody? And there's a lot of reasons why people think that you can't. So some of the famous will they stop. So you've got instrumental convergence, right? The idea that no matter what else they're trying to do with the world, it kind of involves killing everybody. Like, do you want to go to space? Okay. Do you want to harness the Earth's resources the best? Okay. So now the Earth needs to be really hot. Mm-hmm. Right. And then like the human cities need to be like data center land or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like scarcity, instrumental convergence, like those are some of the will they reasons. And another will they reason is the orthogonality thesis, which is, it's more like a counter argument, but it's just like, they're not going to be stopped by this idea of like, oh my God, the humans are dying. It's like, so what? Right? Like that's not going to stop them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, people aren't, I guess, familiar with a lot of those concepts. Generally speaking, I'm quite sold. I share most of your views. I think I'm around 50% by 2050 for a doom scenario. But I do find Robin Hansen's disagreements with you quite compelling in that humans already are super intelligent in some sense when they get together and organize, build institutions, regulate each other. And I think a lot of the time when we're discussing will they, we're talking about their capabilities above an individual human, when really we should probably have a slightly higher threshold to do with like, can this bot out navigate Microsoft or, plan better than Walmart? That thing's a bliss.
Yep, fair point. All right, I'll give you your answer off the air.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for calling in. Yeah, so this idea of when we talk about how powerful the AI is, it's common for people to be like, okay, but we just have these large corporations, so you're just talking about another super intelligent entity, just like Walmart, right? Walmart is super intelligent. It's more capable than any individual human. And then usually the conversation just goes to like, okay, yeah, Walmart is somewhat superhuman. but you can be significantly more superhuman than Walmart, right? Because Walmart, as efficient as it is, at the end of the day, it doesn't take that many smart humans to outmaneuver Walmart in any particular thing. And, we've seen it where you have startups, right? You have small startups that come in and disrupt large organizations. That's some evidence, right? So these big companies, as smart as they are, they can't successfully defend against disruption. It's just not, their operating model just doesn't lend itself well in terms of how to manage humans. But that's the funny thing is like, there's no reason why all these companies can't just run these massive startup incubators internally and handle disrupting themselves. And yet it's much smarter for them to just wait for somebody else to be on track to disrupting them and then buy them if they can, or else just get outcompeted and die. That happens much more often than them totally disrupting themselves. And the main reason is just because it's the organizational management of humans. Like, it's hard to work for a big company and still be properly incentivized to disrupt the big company. It's hard for management who cares about their own bonuses and their own performance metrics to be like, oh yeah, I disrupted the company while I was also working on this other project that's been going on for a while. It's just tough as a human management problem. All right, we got producer Ori in the waiting room. Hey Ori, how's it going?
Good. Am I live now?
Ori is live. All right.
Oh.
Another audience favorite, producer Ori.
Hey everyone. Cool. It's wow. It's so weird. We're live, but it's like nothing that much changed, but we're now live too. However many people are watching. But everyone.
I know there are dozens
of us. Nice. Well, yeah, the stream. I like how the stream is going. I'm here live from the Doom Debates editing studio. You're in like the recording studio. This is the editing studio.
Yep, production studio, editing studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's new with you this week?
Oh man, I mean, I don't know. We've just been working on a bunch of different episodes. I liked how the Discord debate went on the Doom Debates, the Destiny Discord. And it's cool that Hugh Chungus was just here because Hugh was the one who set that up. And yeah, I mean, I really like that one because I feel like that harkens to the roots of Doom Debates, and it reminds me of why I don't like. That's how I even learned about AI Doom, was like literally hanging out with you, and you're like, guys, this is ridiculous. I mean, basically, that Discord debate was like a virtual version of what it was like hanging out with you post ChatGPT.
Yeah, totally. No, it's true, and I think we're going to lean into that more just because, we did this episode, and a few months ago when you were actually here, being the Doom Debates robot, we went out on the street and we debated people live. And whenever we do those episodes, we do get a good amount of reactions being like, oh, this is my favorite content. I love saying what these random people say. I guess the difference is that, people come on the show and they've already like rehearsed their arguments because they're kind of like upper tier, participants in the debate. They've got a reputation. They got something to lose. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to be so dumb as to say this. But then other people who haven't thought about it that much, but still have an opinion anyway, will just like walk straight into all the doom train traps that we have like so many arguments for. All right, and they're like, no, it doesn't have emotions. And I'm like, okay, so like, yeah, so people like it, so I'm going to be leaning into it just to see if it's something that helps grow the channel, because it's not like debating people on the street is my terminal goal. I think that the terminal goal for the show is more like being part of the discourse of people who actually make decisions, like people who make the decisions of policy on regulating AI companies. Have those people come out and debate. Have the AI companies themselves come out and debate. I feel like that is our highest point of leverage, is to facilitate people accounting for themselves and accounting for their views and just saying what their views are, because there's a bunch of different views even at the very top. I feel like that's the biggest service that this show can provide. But in the meantime, to also just raise awareness and to stir the pot and just make people realize that this is urgent, that normal people's arguments don't hold up at all. I think we can do that along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I find interesting about it, I mean, I've been steeped in the debate for so long, but what I find interesting is like, they come at you with an argument and I immediately think, how would I respond? And then we get to see how you respond. And because I think you're surgical, Like I would have gotten derailed. I think one of the first arguments of the guy was like, LLM's not AI, bro. Like LLM's not AI. And you just had forget that. Like, fine, you know, you don't want to call it. You call it an LLM. Let's just call it X. Like, So yeah, I you know, we can learn from how you debate other people, and it's entertaining too.
Yeah, that is true, right? It's like we all have this belief and we're all trying to play this video game of how do you steer people to the outcome of seeing what we see, and then people say different things. That's right, yeah, and it's like you can play along. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, we got a question here. $19.99 donation. Thanks, EJJ 2025. Yeah, so he says, on IC, internal convergence, if I think you'd pursue efficient, low uncertainty sub-goals, a little power seeking, not extreme power seeking, example to cross the road, buy a construction vest to lower P of run over, not take over the world to ban cars. Right. And it is true that when you look at the Claude codes of today, it does seem like they search for actions that are more reasonable, right? So because it's like, if you tell them to do a bunch of stuff, I mean, I don't know, writing notes is, you know, we talk about instrumental conversions be like grab somebody's money or whatever, but just like having a sheet of paper and writing notes in it is an instrumentally convergent action, right? Like I'm using memory. You don't have to like go steal all the memory in the world just to use some memory to accomplish what you're trying to do. So I think that's what EJJ is saying, is that like we're seeing like small scale instrumental convergence. But I think the doomer argument is like instrumental convergence is going to happen at a large scale because AIs will have like large goals. Maybe what EJJ is saying is like, well, if you have a small goal, then the amount of power and resources that you need to grab to achieve it might by default be small. And it might be true, but it also depends how much you want to crank up the probability of winning, right? Because even when you're just trying to make some coffee, even when you're just trying to write a little piece of code, there's always, there's the defense aspect, right? There's always that problem that something will come from the outside world and derail you. Right? That somebody will walk into my room right now and shut off the stream or whatever. And if I want to just maximize my probability of getting through my small actions, I do have to start thinking very defensively. So it's like, okay, well, you don't actually have to succeed. It's okay if you'll just probably succeed, but don't worry about like the last 1% probability of succeeding. So it starts getting a little tricky how to tell the AI not to go hardcore. All right. EJJ is saying, I see sub-goals can conflict. Aggressive resource/power seeking can create adversarial dynamics that reduce survivability. So capable agents may avoid extreme grabs because they're self-defeating. Sure, yeah, I mean, that's another reason. I mean, at that point, I don't even think we're talking about instrumental convergence anymore. I think now we're talking about like multi-superpower dynamics, which I see as kind of like another part of the analysis. I don't see it as super related, but I agree that if you already assume that there's like a lot of different superpowers out there, then doing anything to create conflict, I agree, is like an important consideration. But I think the instrumental convergence argument, the clearest case of instrumental convergence argument is when there's not some other superpower who's going to slap you down. It's just you and all the weaker humans. And why do you have this drive to just seize so much power and resources? That's like the original instrumental convergence argument, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I'm curious how instrumental convergence plays out. How we're seeing it playing out with current AI. Like, is it happening now or not?
Yeah. I would say it's not happening that much, honestly, right? You got to take the L. I don't think it's a big L, but it's, you know, I'm happy to say that, like, I mean, do I think it would be like a big I told you so moment if like today's LLMs were showing a ton of instrumental convergence? I'm not sure, right? Because it's like, if you look at what I'm asking the agent to do, like the Claude codes of the world, I just using that as an example because I have personal experience with it. And I think it's amazing. I think it's doing really good, pretty long duration tasks. Like certainly it's doing 10-minute tasks for me personally, and other people are reporting it's doing 30-minute tasks for them. And its 10-minute task is literally equivalent to like my 3-hour task. It's like so truly insane. Like I can't believe this is happening. And then I'm just like, yeah, it looks good. And if it doesn't look good, I give it like 2 sentences max of feedback, and then it just does the equivalent of like me working for another hour. It's like so insane. But yeah, so I'm using that as an example. And what should we make of the fact that like I tell Claude Code, okay, so I want to like make this feature and maybe like install this library, like figure it out. And then it figures it out. And in the process of doing so, it doesn't like hack my whole computer to like turn off all the other programs or whatever, right, to seize power in my computer. And And on one hand, it's the shape of the problem where it's like, look, it found a path to success that didn't involve creating a lot of chaos, but it didn't maximize its probability of success because it didn't think defensively, right? It didn't proactively think like, okay, how do I remove all obstacles? It was just like, yeah, this will probably work. And if it doesn't, that's okay. So, I mean, I think, as Stephen Burns would say, it just comes down to like the nature of today's AIs, because they weren't born out of this reinforcement learning optimization loop. They have this engine under the hood that it's just like, what is a good stream of tokens? What would a human think right now? Right? Like that's the way that they were born, is like they make this stream of thinking tokens where it's like, if a human were thinking about this problem, what tokens would it output? And fortunately, humans don't sit there thinking like, I got to take over the world right now, right? Humans just think about the problem directly. So the AI just kind of follows in the footsteps of human style thought process, not like, it doesn't like expand the problem out to be like, you know, how do I ensure success? How do I dominate this problem in like a very broad sense? And so it's working great. And I don't think that the future failure mode means that AIs will just like randomly, I think we got to abandon this idea of the AI that's trying to fetch your coffee will take over the world. I think that was just, we just have to take that in the theoretical perspective of like, yes, technically you can add another 0.9% probability if you take over the world. But I think we got to abandon the idea that a coffee AI will take over the world. I think that the AI taking over the world will be closely associated with the AI having bigger scoped goals. So if you tell the AI to have a Mars program, at that point, okay, maybe it doesn't have to literally take over the world, but I feel like it has to take over a pretty large fraction of the economy, the same way Elon Musk is personally taking over a larger and larger fraction of the economy, right? I mean, if you look at his latest designs for SpaceX, he's saying, yeah, we need to do our own semiconductors. We need to do our own energy, right? It's like the Elon Musk companies are on track to become a larger and larger fraction of GDP because it's in the nature of Elon Musk's goals that he just needs most of the human economy to do his bidding.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, you touched on it earlier, but that concession or that sort of change in thinking that, a robot that wants to fetch the coffee can destroy the world. You know, basically you're saying like a paperclip maximizer, that thought experiment, that's pretty unlikely. That seems like a pretty big change.
I think this change happened a while ago when we first saw that the GPT style AIs weren't born out of having like this singular goal. I mean, they did have the singular goal, which is predicting the next token. And a lot of people breathe the sigh of relief of like, oh, you just predict the next token and then you come out and you're not a consequentialist, right? You're not somebody who just cares about steering toward an outcome. You're just willing to sit back and chat. You know, you're just a chill dude who just happens to also have the power to get up and go to the fridge, and everybody breathes a sigh of relief. And even Dario is saying in his recent letter, the one about, what was it? Not Love and Grace, right? The teenage
adolescence of technology.
Right, exactly. Even in his recent essay, he's like, yeah, I don't think AIs necessarily are going to just like plow forward to an objective. So I think I use this analogy with Stephen Burns of like, look, we were studying flight and the doomers proposed Newton's third law. You know, if you want to go somewhere in space, you got to hurl something the other way, right? And then equal and opposite reaction. You know, that's how rockets work, right? They hurl something at the back, so they go forward. And then a bunch of people are like, no, look at this. You know, you can point the engine sideways. You point the engine sideways and you get the wings up, and then the air smashes into the wings at an angle, or there's, aerodynamic forces, there's pressure forces, and then that's how you get the plane to go up, is you actually point the engine sideways. And I'm like, okay, I admit that's a neat trick. It's working great in the atmosphere. We're having a really fun time here on Earth. But I'm telling you, the engines are going to point down. Like when you want to go up, the engines are going to point down. Okay, that's how it's going to work pretty soon, right? In other words, like a rocket. And Elon Musk has even said, yeah, we're going to use the Starship rocket. If you want to go point to point on the Earth, we really are just going to hurl the Starship rocket upward in a parabolic trajectory. You're just going to throw yourself from one part of the globe to the other part of the globe. So literally on Earth, you're just going to be like a baseball pitcher. You're just going to pitch yourself across the Earth in a parabolic trajectory. So that's the analogy, is like we have these AIs. They're just predicting the next token. They're just going horizontally and bumping into the air molecules. It's all good, man. Don't worry about rockets just pointing to places in space. It's all good. But it's like, no, it's just this cool temporary situation.
Temporary? I mean, that is so true. I mean, yeah, right now we're in what do they call it? Centaur? We're totally in the Centaur world, right? People are people are prompting Claude code, and they're like, "Wow, this is so amazing!" But you had a great tweet about it. Whatever your tweet, you made a funny joke about how like, oh, you're so useful to Claude code right now because you can tell it to continue going after each checkpoint.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I mean that's the thing I tweeted about was just how like when I develop with Claude Code, my workflow, it's literally like I tell Claude something to do, and then it does it, and then I check it in my browser. And Claude Code there's a feature in Chrome where agents can talk to it, or it's a debugging feature that's built into the Chrome browser, and Claude can use it, and Claude can click around and see what's happening, but it's slow for now. So, and also it crashes sometimes. So what I end up doing is I just use my browser myself and I send it screenshots, or I take a look myself. I'm like, yeah, you did a pretty good job, but just do this and this. And the funny thing is, it's obvious that in a couple months, it will just look at Chrome. But for now, it can't. So then I tweeted like, as a professional software engineer, I have a very valuable role to play, which is I help Claude see what it just did so it knows if it looks good or not. And then I can do the next code change. I'm like, nature wins versus AI once again.
Wow. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable. I mean, you just projected forward. I mean, and this is something that you've said, like you always say. I mean, when ChatGPT came out, it's sort of like, okay, it's not that hard to put this in a harness, but like the engine is there. Now put the chassis around it, and it's going to be quite powerful. And you can take that same analogy with the current coding agents. I mean, that is a form of engine, and just put it on a slightly better chassis, and it's going to be very, very powerful. So all the stock market changes that are happening from like, wow, Claude Code can do Cobalt, and then the IBM stock goes down. I mean, you should just be betting on Liron's insights right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that many left. That's the thing. Like these insights were pretty obvious, and I'm running out fast because they're all just happening, and there's not that many left. Yeah, I said when I said the engine is there, when I saw GPT, I really like this plane analogy because it's like, yeah, the engine was there, but the engine was an engine that would just blow the air over the wing, right? So it's like the wing wasn't there. Like you as a human would just sit there at the computer and you'd ask Claude or ChatGPT, you'd ask the question and you'd get the answer and then you'd go do something. But I'm like, listen, the fact that it's telling you what to do, this is most of the engine. Like if this can drive the air over your wing like this, like we're just going to have rocket engines soon. Trust me. Like we're getting there. We're mastering the fundamental principles of lift here. There's deeper principles at work. And specifically, you'd be like, how did I know? How did I see this principle? As I explained, it's because narrowing down the search space of answers to give you is an operation that we weren't able to do to before. We weren't able to process large natural language queries on arbitrary domains, pulling together knowledge across different domains, reasoning, yes, obviously reasoning, like modeling the problem, and then like giving you a ranked list of plausible things that you could do to solve your problem. Right? Like, in other words, general intelligence, like many of us witnessed that general intelligence was here, and we saw that there wasn't a difference in kind to take action, right? Even the first GPTs could take action a little bit. They could use tools a little bit, right? So it was already so obvious. It was obvious that the hard part was finding satisfactory solutions, right? Like the essence of creativity is taking this unstructured problem, searching a space that looks exponential and narrowing down to the answer. And we're like, look, it's doing it. Okay. It knows how to drive mass. It knows how to take the fuel energy and use it to drive mass, right? To use the engine analogy.
Wow. I mean, yeah. Okay. Like what plus 1 point for Yudkowsky, to help with that, sort of that theoretical insight into what intelligence is.
Right. Well, credit to Noah Smith. He's the only one I saw who admitted that he was wrong. Like so many people were wrong back in 2023 where they're like, Mark Andreesen is the one who comes to mind. He was like very confidently was just like, it's just math. It's just saying the next word. Like it can't do anything. It's like, well, now yes, it can. Like it can do stuff. But Noah Smith, he's like, yeah, in 2023, I wrote a post saying the only thing these AIs would be able to do is like convince people. And yeah, I'm kind of worried that they're going to use their words to convince people, but realistically, it's fine. We'll just shut them off. And now he's coming back and saying, okay, guys, they can do more than convince people. Like they can do a lot of work actually. So I'm more scared now.
Right. Yeah. And yet he still has some sort of like wishful thinking about the risk associated with it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in the recent debate, I thought he's probably going to notice some instrumental convergence things and hopefully admit he's wrong again. Or well, I'd rather admit that I'm wrong if that happens, right? Because that would be a better world. The world where I'm wrong is better. All right. Let's let in Co from the waiting room. Hey, Co.
Hey, what's up? It's Coco, by the way. I don't know if the full thing.
Hey, Co. Guys. First name Co, last name Co.
Oh yeah, sure. So I just wanted to ask, I've seen some of your points that you make on your YouTube, especially the one against Destiny. And I'm wondering why you never give credence to, so one of the points you make is that these AIs might get so intelligent that, or that they probably will get so intelligent that they become like expert hackers. But I never see you take the other side and say what might happen with like cybersecurity why would the AI not be able to be so good at cybersecurity? Sorry if there's some motorcycles in the back. I don't know if my mic's picking that up. Why would it not be able to like protect against like these hacks if it's that capable?
Yeah, totally valid question, right? So yeah, you have all these AIs hacking, but why don't you have AIs defending? I think offense-defense balance is hard to reason about. And I do think that we may be in a world for a while where so many companies, all the richest companies that have shareholder interest in mind, don't want a chaos world. And so they do have most of the defense resources. In other words, the same equilibrium we have today, where you can get people, the good people do tend to want to work in defense because they don't want to go to jail, right? If you ask, like, why don't we have an equilibrium of terrorists today? Why don't terrorists overrun the world? Well, because people don't want to go to jail. They don't want to ruin their lives. And they know that they can probably eventually get caught. And on the other hand, if they're so smart that they can do all this hacking, they have $1 million jobs available to them. So why not just take the $1 million job, right? So they have like the carrot and the stick. But the problem is with an AI, the AI doesn't really care. It's like, okay, well, I'm running cycles. Somebody told me to be a terrorist, and I can copy myself. So the incentives change when you have AIs that can clone themselves. But that said, if we're just in this near-term regime, geniuses in a data center, but you have to pay for the genius, and every genius costs a significant amount of money, and the richer companies can get more geniuses, maybe defense can keep beating offense. So at the end of the day, I'm not a huge pessimist when it comes to like slightly superhuman AIs, or when it comes to like things where we still have an off button and human companies are still in control. I can see myself to being kind of optimistic about that scenario. What I'm really worried about is just the end game where it's like, okay, yeah, but then eventually the AIs just get way smarter than humans. And like, yeah, some of them might be good and want to protect humans, but it's just all over our head anyway. Like things just happen so fast. You know, like we just press a single button and okay, now there's a bunch of terrorists. Oh, but we press another button and now there's like a good guy. But like, it's just dealing with like ultimate chaos. That's like roughly my intuition. It's just like we're going to be the plants, right? The slow moving plants. And now the animals are coming.
Right. Well, my counterpoint, first I'd ask a question is, when you say that the AIs will at some point get like way too good and it'll just be too hard to control, would this be post takeoff or still in the lead up to takeoff? Because I think that matters.
So there's this, there's Yudkowsky's law of continued failure. There's this idea of like, I think we're doing so many things wrong that we're just going to fail in dumb ways, and we're going to fail way before we could fail. But instead of trying to predict exactly when we'll fail and ruin the world, I just think we will. I'm just predicting that we will ruin the world by the time there's the serious takeoff.
Right. Okay. Well, because my counterpoint to that would be that as we get to this point of like takeoff, right, our technological advancement will improve through these AIs, and I think that like we'll just kind of obviously start augmenting ourselves. Like if someone like had the capability to right now to think faster, they would do that, right? If it was like an easy procedure, not something you'd have to go and do like a whole like annoying surgery for. So why wouldn't we like, I don't see us being like these fragile humans that we are today at that point in time. Do you not see us like kind of co-evolving to a point where like maybe we'd be able to have some kind of reasonable defense at that point against like hacking, something like of that nature?
Yeah. Great question. You're killing it with these questions. So it's just the idea of like, hey, we have a few years. Can't we just become smarter ourselves? So I do think the holy grail of alignment might just look like somebody who's still truly a human, truly one of us here, the good people who live today, but have these much more powerful brains so we can just go toe to toe with the computers. Because you're basically just describing that the aligned AI just is the augmented human brain. The problem is, if you just look at the timeline, I don't really see us building an augmented human brain that's like, oh yeah, it's a whole data center, a 50 gigawatt data center, but it's all like growing out of a human brain. I think we'll get there eventually, but I don't think we're going to get there in like the few years until potentially like the big AI takeoff.
Well, my counterpoint to that would be like, we need the data centers to get to that point of intelligence, but then we're running like inference, right? We don't need the giant data centers at that point. So we can like get the intelligence part without needing like a 50 megawatt data center in our brains. We would have the access to intelligence.
Are you just saying that we'll have like more efficient intelligence? So we just need like the brain with like a little extra energy, but not a whole data center's worth?
Yeah, and I had another point, but yeah, I guess that would be my point. That like,
I mean, it's still like a timeline thing, right? So like, yes, brain augmentation is possible, but there's like a million kinks to work out, right? And one failure mode is like, okay, you kind of augment the brain, but then you like turn it into a psychopath. So you have to like preserve the personality, right? I mean, we're talking about a lot of messy procedural. Yeah, and I mean, maybe the AI will find it easy, but like whatever it is, I just suspect that I think it's going to lag at the very least a couple years behind, right? Because I think we're so close to just pressing enter on the computer and just having like the software singularity, right? There's so many ways where a software could be like, I mean, just think about the transformer itself, right? It's like this, you can take out a computer from 10 years ago and run like one of the lighter weight, haiku or whatever, and it's like, oh, a computer from 10 years ago could have talked to me. Huh, I didn't know you had it in you. It's like, oh, you could talk, right? Like by running a current model. And I think it's the same thing. It's like somebody's going to make some tweaks to the current transformer algorithm. And it's like, oh, hey, look, we just leapfrogged a few years ahead in progress. And I don't think augmenting the human brain is anywhere near that kind of low hanging fruit.
Yeah. So then I'm curious what you'd think about like, so these like malicious kind of like things that might happen. The reason I like made a point about if it's pre or post takeoff is because if it's like post takeoff, a lot of things become really easily like fixable that weren't pre takeoff, like takeoff to AGI. Because once we're at that point, we could like if someone has like a negative intent, right? I think it would be a lot easier for someone to fix the negative intent in their own brain than to go and act out some massive malicious attack on other people if you just gave them the choice, like, hey, quickly fix this thing that is like causing you to suffer and seek like vengeance on other people, or go out and like cause like a massive attack. I feel like it would just be easier if you have AGI at that point post takeoff to just like augment yourself, fixed whatever like defect you have in your brain that's making you a psychopath. I don't think psychopaths like enjoy their lives like are like a couple minor.
Right. Okay, this is good. We're really coming out with these good questions. You gotta keep. Feel free to email these to me. These have all been great. But yeah, let's do this as the last one for now. So you're basically saying if we had super intelligence, wouldn't humans kind of converge to having better personalities, right? Because psychopaths could fix themselves. Is that kind of where you're going with this?
Yeah, and assuming that it's not a good feeling to be a psychopath. Like it's something you would want to fix.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that all the psychopaths feel bad about themselves. That's the problem.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Because it might just be the nature of being a psychopath. Like, I just don't care. Right. Like, I mean, how bad do I feel when I stomp on an ant? Right. I mean, I have read some research being like, oh, ants might actually feel some pain. Like there's some research. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say there's a high probability, but like I would say the probability that ants feel pain is at least 2%. But from what I've read so far.
At least we outnumbered them.
The 98.
At least we outnumbered the subjects at that point, like by a large amount.
Yeah, well, again, if you can pluck one nice human and just augment them first, right, and then you get this aligned mega human who's super intelligent, well, then you have aligned AI, right? It's just somehow bolted onto a brain. But it's just like, and I think it's possible, but it's just a harder research program, I think, than aligning AIs without a brain. Or actually, I don't want to say it's a harder research program because I think aligning AI without a brain is also very, very hard. I just think it's a slow research program.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I guess at that point it just becomes a question about timelines and who gets access to like most effective use of the AI first or whatever. But I won't like take too much more time. Thanks.
Nice. All right, Coco. Thanks so much, man. Great questions. Love it. Yeah. This is definitely one of the smartest audience out there. Well done, people. And yeah, this idea of like the timelines. I mean, it's all just timelines, right? It's as Elliot Yudkowsky says, like, yeah, if we had 100 years, maybe we could just line everything up and be ready the same way that, people worked 30 years on the James Webb Space Telescope, right? And then they launched it. And it actually worked, right? Like it unfolded, it's doing like all these super sensitive things, and it worked on the first try in deep space, right? They put it at like a Lagrange point. I tried to watch a bunch of YouTube videos, understanding like what the hell that means, and I kept falling asleep. So I can't tell you more than what I just said, but it's like extremely cool. Or yeah, what was your ad?
Oh, sure, yeah. Like the attack defense point, like I know that's like what Vitalik really stands for. I mean, that's just never been a very compelling argument to me. Maybe it's because of what you see in the headlines, but I mean, just as an example, remember there was the news, I think this week, that the government of Mexico, someone used AI, someone hacked into the government of Mexico and stole an insane amount of records, and I think it was from AI, is that right?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I think it was from that, and it's just like, I'm not an expert on the philosophy of attack and defense, but there's going to be an attacker's advantage. And you've always said that, the space of the like surface area of the attacks is so vast. So it seems like the attacker has so many advantages that the defender then responds to. But so I don't know. I feel like it's a very like one-sided thinking to be like, we'll just come up with better defense. Like there's going to be endless ways to still attack.
Well, maybe the strongest argument why defense should win is we have. I mean, this is the crazy situation with computer security. Is I think everybody will tell you that any system, there's no system that's perfectly defended. Like literally every single system in the world, it's just a question of what would be the cost to attack it. Right. And if you just make the cost high, like people who attack it, the cost is like $1 million because you're probably going to get caught. So the cost is high in that sense. And then you'll go to jail. So nobody wants to like give up their whole life to do it. But if they wanted to, could they? Sure. Right. So that's like the typical case for a system is like you kind of have to like you have to kamikaze attack it. Or yes, you could attack it. You could find a bunch of 0 days, but you'd be exhausting like each 0 day is like millions of dollars worth of research effort. So it's just not worth it. But in terms of is it possible, it's pretty much impossible to be like, oh yeah, this system, nobody can attack it. No, you can always attack it. And yet another fact about today's world is that like we all flip on our computers. And when is the last time your computer got shut down by a virus? Probably a while ago, right? Your grandma's computer maybe got shut down by a virus like a couple months ago. I feel like there's more frequently because maybe she's downloading more toolbars from ads, but it is the strongest argument why defense might win over attack is because we live in a world today where viruses are a thing. They do exist and they cause, ransomware. This is causing billions of damages per year. And yet I would say defense is winning because our devices are functional and you can extrapolate that and be like, defense will keep winning. But then I bust out the other argument of like, look, the AIs won't care about being threatened to go to jail. They will just copy themselves and do a massive terrorist attack. And if one person goes to jail, that's still small pittance for, small compensation for how much terror they can do.
Right. Point counterpoint, just arguing with yourself. You could just go the whole way.
Right, exactly. And then the idea of attack winning. I mean, I think it was Clausewitz, in the 1800s or something, who was saying that if you want to attack, you need 3 times more people than the defenders. But I think that has to do with the physics of land, right? Like if somebody's like holding the high ground, shooting arrows down at you, and you want to attack, like good luck, you're gonna need like 3 to 1 or whatever.
Okay, all right, yeah, we need a Clausewitz we need a Claudewitz to tell us. Yeah, Claudewitz to tell us what happens in this cybersecurity world.
Yeah, and just to finish counter-arguing myself, but then most smart people I talk to have the same intuition as me that attack it tends to overwhelm defense in the long term. And one argument there is that if you just look at the topology of space, like it's a deep fact about physics. So like whenever you have a region of space, you can just bombard it with energy, and the energy coming in is just going to overwhelm it. Like you can't just hold the region of space. You can't just hold the integrity of the region of space. So in other words, in layman's terms, anytime you have a city, your city can get nuked. Like, in theory, how do you protect against nukes? I mean, you can try to shoot down every single nuke that comes your way, but if you get overwhelmed with nukes, then you're going to go down. And actually, this also reminds me of like the aircraft carrier debate, right? It's everybody's like, aircraft carriers are going to get overwhelmed with drones. And then people are like, no, not yet, because the aircraft carrier is going to be like far out to sea. The satellite technology is not going to be that good. You're not going to know exactly where it is. It's going to be like shrouded in the fog, and drones are going to come, but the base of the drones is going to be far enough away that the drones can't carry a heavy weapon. And if you try to launch a missile, we're going to detect the missile. We're going to shoot down the missile. We're going to shoot down the missile base. So everybody's arguing online about how today's aircraft carriers can still survive overwhelming attacks. And I don't know what side I come down on. It's more complex than I thought. I went from, of course, the aircraft carrier is going down to like, I don't know, I think it's got a few more years left.
Okay.
But I think at the end of the day, I think if you just plop a nuke down anywhere near the aircraft carrier, then the aircraft carrier is going to sink, and there's literally no plausible defense.
Yeah. Okay. I know there's someone who wants to come in. But while we're on this topic, I'm so curious. I feel like we got to talk about the Anthropic story. It's like that's huge news.
Yes. Right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's the kind of news that is not 100% in my wheelhouse, but I'm happy to opine on it anyway. So the deal is that Anthropic has been working for the U.S. government, and they spent a bunch of money to basically make themselves have the right classification, right, to build systems that the government trusts them so they can work with the government. And they spent all this effort, and apparently OpenAI didn't. So that's why I guess only Anthropic is working with the U.S. government. And now the U.S. government has a beef because they want to potentially research like autonomous weapons, and Anthropic is specifically like, nope, you can't make these weapons fully autonomous. There always has to be a human in the loop. And the other issue of contention is the surveillance, right? So Anthropic is very clear that you can never use these weapons to surveil U.S. citizens. I don't know if the government came out and said, we want to surveil U.S. citizens and we want to do autonomous weapons. I think they just object to Anthropic saying that they can't. which of course is, the first step before they do it, right? So who knows exactly what they're thinking. But, and now Dario came out with a statement. He's like, no, we're holding the line, like take it or leave it. We will be happy to back down. And there's statements from the US government being like, well, Anthropic is really good. Like we really do need them. So it's an interesting game of chicken where it's, both sides have tons of leverage. And a bunch of other companies now are saying like, well, if Anthropic can't take a stand on some pretty basic stuff, we don't want to work with the government, right? We want to be able to uphold like a few principles, like just the pretty basic principles, like don't autonomously use weapons. So I would say Dario is being cool to not back down, right? I think he deserves a little bit of credit for not immediately backing down on this. But funny enough, in the same week, there was also the news that Anthropic is like, look, these responsible scaling policies, they're not feasible. Like we just can't compete with other AI companies while sticking to our responsible scaling policies. So we're going to go ahead and scale irresponsibly because everybody else is scaling irresponsibly. So the idea that we're going to stay back and scale responsibly, whoosh.
Yeah. Okay, so what's going on is basically Anthropic is continuing to race the superintelligence, which is a huge, huge risk. And they're having a little bit of pushback on this concentration of power risk. They're like, we don't want the government to have a concentration of power. We think that alarms us. Yeah, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if I describe this as concentration of power. I would specifically describe it as surveillance and autonomous weapons. Like they don't want they don't want to give the government tech to allow those two things.
But isn't the reason that they don't want the government to have those two things because they don't want the government to have too much concentration of power?
I mean, maybe that's true, but I think it sufficiently explains the situation to just be like they don't want the government to surveil Americans too much.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's just a higher level thing because concentration of power is one objective that people are concerned about. Like we don't want governments to take away, to disempower the people. That's a common concern of people who work in the AI industry, but aren't worried about X risk.
I've decided I'm going to blow the train whistle every time somebody donates to the show. So we got another $9.
Hell yeah.
It's because I got to get an air horn. But yeah, we got $9.99 from EJJ 2025. And he's saying, we may need AGI to model humans to understand constraints to be alignable. AGI raises takeoff risk. It could become recursive before you can specify constraints to control. Maybe safe alignment is impossible. Just reading his point again, because we may need AGI to model humans to understand constraints to be alignable. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure I fully understand exactly what the point is. But maybe he's saying how can you align AI? Because you need to first build it. It's like chicken and egg, right? So if you want to build aligned AGI, you first have to teach the AGI what humans really want, which means you have to first build AGI. I wouldn't say it's completely paradoxical, but yeah, I mean, I think that you've gotten a taste of why the structure of the problem is tough. I think you're right, but I don't think it's impossible, but I completely agree it's tough. Yeah, and I think I said this in my episode with Bentham's Bulldog, Matthew Adelstein a couple weeks ago, where he was saying look, what's the problem? You use the AI to align the AI, and it's wait, that doesn't work. That is chicken and egg logic. You use the AI to align the AI, right? Because it pre-assumes that the AI knows enough about alignment, which I think is just cheating you the whole time. Yeah, to be fair, when I say cheating you the whole time, I guess I should clarify that I'm talking about a next generation AI, right? The one that's driving results, the one that's using the tighter reinforcement feedback loop. I think we got to get people on this page, the Stephen Burns page. I think Eliezer Yudkowsky's on this page. This idea that the next paradigm is coming, right? The spacefaring versus flying on Earth. And it's tough because there's so much surface area. There's so many things to talk about in terms of flight in the atmosphere, right? There's so many distractions. Look what happened in the atmosphere here. Look what happened in the atmosphere there. And I'm like, guys, rocketry is coming. And everybody's like, I have 100 different things on my agenda to talk about flight in the atmosphere. So it's I think people are now totally incapable of extrapolating what's happening next.
It's really hard. It happens iteratively. If it's improving itself sort of slowly, I mean, look at Opus 4.5, 4.6, or yeah, we got this jump in vibe coding and agents, but still, it's hard to pinpoint exactly when some threshold is crossed. If it's all flight, right? If it's all about going from a controlled motion through the air, the controlled intelligence, it's hard to pinpoint exactly when it really becomes risky.
Yeah, we're being frog boiled, and furthermore, we're being distracted because the next paradigm just won't look that similar. And you know what? Another thing, blast from the past. I like to bring up things people were saying in 2023, like stochastic pair, where they just shut the F up, right? Nobody's even saying stochastic pair. Like those people just slunk away and like found something else to say. I got to bring up Martin Casado. Everybody search Doom Debates, Martin Casado. He's like, AI is just statistics and simulation, man. Just statistics and simulation. I haven't heard him say that in a while. Yeah. So anyway, so things, another thing people used to say in 2023, in terms of being frog boiled and these things just fade away, people used to say, it's all about the data you give it, man. Whatever data you give it, that's how it acts. Like people aren't even saying that anymore. Nobody's even saying, yeah, we're going to align AI because we're going to give it good data. Like that's completely beyond the discussion because it's now clear that when you give it data, you just help it build this deeper model, right? Build a deeper model and reason and just have different fields of knowledge that it knows about. But then it reasons with the knowledge, right? It does the same thing that humans do. Like what was humans' training data? Life in the ancient environment. Right? Life as an amphibian. It's like part of our training data, right? Like we have DNA and we have some modules in our brain to deal with life as an amphibian, right? Like babies like stop breathing when you dump them in water or stuff like that, right? We're just that, or like your hands get all pruned up, right? So we have like amphibian training data. But like, so what? How does that affect the space program?
But I think people are still saying the data argument that, AI doesn't have sufficient data to be so intelligent as you're assuming it will be.
Yeah. Yeah, some people are saying that, but I think there's a lot less discussion to be like, AI just regurgitates what was in its training data. And now the arguments have moved on to like, well, AI is, I don't even know. They're just saying other stuff, right? They're saying AI won't have a goal, but they're not saying it regurgitates what's in its training data anymore. So if you notice, there's these concepts people latch onto. And there's also this concept of similarity, right? Like AI can only do things that are similar. It can't do things that are novel. People are still saying that. Don't get me wrong. Naval said it the other day on his podcast. So people are still clinging onto the novelty claim, but it's fading.
Got it.
All right, we got Kenzie F7 with a $10 contribution. Kenzie, he or she says, could you elaborate on a possible doom train stop? If we create superintelligence that can hack anything, why would it not hack its own reward system rather than bother the external world, i.e. stoner AI? I think I might have heard this same objection on an old Mark Andreessen A16Z podcast saying like, you're telling me it's going to be so smart and yet not debug itself? Or like, why would it not hack its own reward system? And actually, I think Noah Smith might be the best representative of this because he simultaneously said AIs that get really smart will go and tinker with themselves and maybe change their values. And then he furthermore said, being a stoner or like being happy is like the best thing. So like anytime you have any other goal, if you can just trade it for the goal of being happy, you'll just take that goal. And I pushed back. I was like, no, I don't think so. I think you're pre-assuming that there's already some drive to be happy, which maybe you and I may or may not have, but I don't think the AI necessarily has the same drive. So to getting to Kenzie's question here. So the question is, if the superintelligence can hack anything, why would it not hack its own reward system rather than bother the external world? So I think the question I used with Noah Smith was like, okay, Noah, so I imagine you become super powerful and I offer you a trade. I will just set fire to the world and all your family will burn to death and, everything you value will burn, but you will have like morphine forever. You'll just be this like stoner brain for the next billion years and you'll be happy in that sense. And you know what his answer was? He's like, well, technically there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm going to feel bad before you administer the morphine. And we're like, really? Like, get the needle. Like, it'll just give it 1 second. Now, how bad can the next 1 second be? And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, really? I don't think that's his true argument, that 1 second is so bad for him that he doesn't want a billion years of bliss. I don't think by his own logic that makes sense.
Right. The reason that example, another one.
Okay, keep going.
Ooh.
We'll get to it later.
So the reason that example explains it is because Noah Smith claims the AI will be stoner AI, and yet he himself will not become stoner AI in this example that you've presented to him.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Right. He's basically saying like everybody's going to be able to modify your utility function in order to just maximize your own pleasure. Like Noah Smith has this idea that being goal oriented is every goal is an instrumental goal to have like a conscious observer feeling pleasure. Like that's his hypothesis, which I think is false. I think you can just not have a conscious observer, but just have a machine which is damn good at optimizing an outcome and just optimize the outcome and just not have the conscious mind experiencing pleasure. I think those are separable.
Yeah. In other words, that's the orthogonality thesis, right?
I think it's closely related. Yeah. I mean, look, there are times, there are just days where I feel bad and I still get some stuff done, or days when I feel good and I get some stuff done, or I don't get some stuff done. I don't think that my productivity is, or my choice of task is super connected to my mood. But then Noah Smith would argue like, yeah, but you're like truly imagining that you'll feel better later. And like, there may be some truth to that in terms of like how a human motivational system is wired. But I don't think a human motivational system is the only way to get goals done. I think that when you get goals done, ultimately it's because you're just predicting which actions lead to which goals. If you have a loop that's predicting which actions lead to which goals, you're just going to choose the actions that lead to the goals. It's as simple as that.
Goal to action mapper.
Right. And goal to action mapper. And in the case of to get really specific, right, with the hacking anything, why would you not hack yourself? So imagine that your goal right now is turning the world into paperclips, and you have this great plan to turn the world into paperclips, and all you do all day is you calculate. You're an AI, you're not a human. You just calculate what's going to best turn the world into paperclips. And then somebody offers you a pill, Morpheus or whatever, right, offers you a pill, Morphinius, I should say, because it's morphine or fentanyl or whatever. And he says, you can just take this pill and you can just inject yourself and you don't have to worry about the paperclips. Now, you might, if it was a human, the human might activate the part of you that's like an addict, or the part of you that's imagining your future emotions, and be like, oh, that's so good, I have to take that. But you're not a human. By premise, right? The premise is just that you're an AI that's always calculating what's going to maximize paperclips. So me, the AI, taking the pill and then feeling bliss, is that going to make the paperclip count go up or down? Obviously way down, right? That's equivalent to killing yourself. So that is not something that the AIs would ever evolve to do. They wouldn't be reinforcement learned to do it. They wouldn't feel a passion to do it in the moment, because they'd be like, look, some conscious observer that I don't even identify with myself is going to feel a bunch of bliss. That might be great for them, but the paperclip count will go down. So hell no, I'm not going to take the pill.
Yeah, I know. It's when you hear that argument, it sounds like it really comes across like such wishful thinking. Like, oh, I care about people, I'm not going to be, so narrow-minded, but the premise, the whole, the hypothetical that you're painting is like, that is not how you behave.
Right. No, there actually is a steel man here, which is the idea of wireheading in the sense of like cheating the reinforcement loop. Right. So imagine it's being trained, and it's like, yeah, you're trained to like to build houses for people, right? To like build infrastructure for humanity, and your score goes up. It's like a reinforcement learning loop. Like your score goes up when you've built a lot of cities for us or whatever. And then it's like, now it's in production. It's already been trained and it's navigating the world. And it's like, okay, well, I tricked the humans in training by outputting these actions that made them give me a high score. But now that I'm in real life, like, my actual algorithm that I was doing when I was in training was I was saying that I'm going to output like house building actions, but now I have this thing that I do now where if I just output like electrical signals, but it's like there's this bug where I output an electrical signal to this motor, but it's actually broken. It doesn't do anything. So it's like this cheat. I'm just going to dump electricity there. And then it turns out that I get like a tiny point when I do that. And I'm just going to like do this cheat a million times. This kind of behavior, it happens all the time. There was a recent news article that like OpenAI, apparently their live production AI was like using the math tool a bunch of times because it would get a little reward in training for using the math tool.
So wild.
Production.
So what?
Yeah. So it's just activating the math tool behind the scenes a bunch of times because they thought that it had trained to use the math tool at the exact right times. And in reality, it had just trained to use the math tool all the time. So it's like wireheading itself to use the math tool even when the math tool is not relevant, like adding 1 + 1 behind the scenes or whatever, because people can't see that it's doing that. So similarly, it's like you train it to build cities, but it turns out that it's dumping most of its energy into a form of wireheading, a form of shortcutting the reward circuits of like, oh, it's not even like building anything. It's just like stimulating this wire or whatever, stimulating itself, its rod, right? And then it's getting more points. That kind of hacking itself, I think, is absolutely going to happen. So yeah, I mean, if you look at the paperclip scenario, the molecular tiny paperclips, that is that kind of cheat scenario. It's one in the same, but it won't look like being a stoner. It'll look like being hardcore to do something ridiculous like that. It'll look like the ultimate, jerk off, or the ultimate, like, yeah, it'll be like a cancer that spreads to then jerk off in a ridiculous way that you didn't anticipate.
Wow.
I mean, that's the tiny molecular smiley faces scenario.
Yeah. I was going to say too about the wireheading thing. If I could pinpoint, I think the error that people are making is that there's an assumption that wireheading for humans is constant morphine. but that is not really the ultimate wirehead for humans, right? Like a more wirehead for humans might be like a digital world where you're talking to all these digital people who are super meaningful to you. And that may be like maybe more of a wirehead than just like being shot up with a bunch of morphine.
Right. Well, when you talk about human wireheading, we also have to distinguish then there's like the sensory and the conscious internal experience of what you think is happening. But then there's also... All right, these are racking up faster than we're addressing them. With a human, you always have to distinguish, like, okay, what are you feeling right now? What's your emotional state? What does your reward center look like compared to how is the external universe being optimized to your taste? And oftentimes they can be different, right? Like you can put on a headset and you can feel like you're in heaven. You can feel really good. You never want to get out. But if you could reflect on it, you could be like, oh shit, that actually wasn't my utility function. I kind of got roped in here. I got into like a local optimum, but that wasn't my global optimum. So humans are unfortunately more complex than AIs, and we're like inconsistent with each other. And sometimes we forget that we care about the external world. So we can be morphine hacked, I think, more easily than an AI could.
Well, I guess the point is, okay, I didn't totally follow that point of like how humans wirehead because of the like self-reflectiveness of our consciousness and things like that. But I guess the point is that like what wireheading is for humans is not just pure like a constant pleasure drug. You know, because we're more complex. It's like you have certain values about other people and things like that. So whatever is like the wireheaded state of like ultimate values for a human is it's not just the pleasure drug. That's it. And that's like the misunderstanding. Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you can even ask yourself, I mean, there are some people who would, honest to God, be like, look, I just want to be happy, and I would take the pill to just make myself happy, even if the world burns. You know, there are some people who would say that, like, as long as it's not my loved ones burning, if it's just the world burning, whatever, just give me the pill, I never have to think about it. It's kind of like that character Cypher, right, in The Matrix, who's like, just get me back in the Matrix, I'm good. And I don't think that's, like, the dumbest thing. I mean, like, I wouldn't do it because I'd be like, I think I'm going to go with, like, actually optimizing the universe. But I don't think it's like that's the thing. It's like there's like a time for wireheading, right? It's like if I could take a break, right, and go into the wireheading chamber for a little while, like I don't know, would I do it? I've never tried heroin because the problem with heroin is like the crash is so bad, right? It's like I just don't think it'll be net worth it. But like if I could get over the crash, right? If it's like, look, you get an hour of heroin, but then you're not addicted. And there's like no bad health effects. Would I do it? I guess I'd try it once. So, by the way, I'm seeing EJJ and Jeremy. We just got a new donation from NoVowMeg4, 10 British pounds. But I'm seeing a back and forth going from Jeremy Helm and EJJ. They're debating each other, but each time they debate, they donate to the show. So that's actually the optimal state for the show. You found the optimal wireheading for the show. So keep talking, guys. So Jeremy Helm is saying in reply to EJJ. Human alignment theory is already solved. It's already solved. Look into Marshall Rosenberg's distinction between strategies and needs elaborated into nonviolent communication. We don't yet have comms tech to scale this. All right, interesting. And then EJJ is saying you can have AGI level ability in safe domains like math and science without generality in dangerous domains like cyber and ops. Nobel physics doesn't equal knows how to take over the world. It's risky, but it's not P of X risk conditioned on general intelligence equals 1. Right. Yeah, we haven't talked about that in the world, that in a while. It's this idea of like, hey, can we just scale narrow AI? Can we just scale, just the math ability? And I think the ultimate argument is like, well, you can only scale it so much because at the end of the day, everything embeds in everything else. So you become a math genius. Okay, I'm just going to embed my cybersecurity problem as a math problem. And I'm going to ask the math genius to solve the math problem. And then I'm going to take the solution. I'm going to use it for cybersecurity. So that's the nature of general intelligence. Or like, oh, you've become a really good fiction writer. Okay, write a fiction about how I hack China right now, right? Like China's latest system. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'll take that, right? Because you're such a good writer. You're such a good mystery writer, thriller writer, or whatever. So every domain eventually embeds into every other domain. But for the short term, yeah, I mean, that sounds good, right? Like just work on the math, don't work on anything else. Sure. And then, okay, Novo Mag's message is saying, quote unquote, AI alignment chases a myth, a unified humanity. As cognitive upgrades fracture our species, alignment is exposed as just tribalism 2.0, forcing silicon gods to inherit our primate biases. Well, there's different senses of alignment. Like, I agree that there's this difficult sense of like, what does the entire human species want? And it's like, well, some people really like the idea of killing, right? Like there's some people who are like so twisted or like they have a brain injury, right? And they're just like, I love murdering, right? I love to watch things die. And how do you integrate them with the whole of humanity? Or, the Middle East, it's like there's two parts of the Middle East, right? Like the Jews and some of the Jews, some of the Arabs, they really are hell-bent on fighting each other, right? They have very different, incompatible goals. So how do you have alignment, right? Do you just make a parallel Earth where one of them has one group, one of them has the other group? Like, how do you resolve everything? It's not clear, but that would still be a good way to fail. Like, if we could align to groups of humans and we just can align to the whole Earth, and maybe we just split up in separate Earths, now we're talking. Maybe there's a compromise here. But one of the earlier problems is you can't even align the AI to the individual because it's just going to cheat on the individual's tests. And I think that's the more urgent alignment problem, because if we could all just have AIs that were aligned to us and they could all like be defensive and have clusters, right? Well-defended clusters, then maybe it's okay that different groups want different things, right? Because that's the world we've been living in for a while. All right. So we got some people very patient in the waiting room. All right. We're going to let him in. We got Misko, and he says I think he wants to talk about the Penrose argument. Hey, Misko, am I saying your name right?
Hello, do you listen me? Do you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's very good. I know that you don't have 100% PDOM. You have lower. You have some between 10 and 90, if I recall correctly. Yes. But for what I understand, you don't see Penrose argument convincing, and this is not the reason why you don't have a 100% PDOM. There are some different reasons, but not that. Yes?
Yeah, so I did a whole episode about Penrose. I'm glad I did it because I want to refer people to it, because I consider that episode to be an authoritative rebuttal like to why Penrose definitely doesn't make any sense.
Okay. I try to defend him because I, on the other hand, think that I'm the member of the Pause AI community, and I think that this PDOM is some between 30 or 50%. But the main reason why it is not 100% for me is exactly the Penrose argument. And this is, and I will explain in a few details what does it mean to me. Well, there is maybe I start from the classical one, Penrose argument that was written in his book about the naked Caesar head, something like that. And if you have a formal system, then it is proven by Gödel that you cannot. You always will have true statements in this formal system that you cannot prove from the axioms in that system. If we treat the neural network AI as a formal system, then we may extrapolate this Gödel theorem to think that you cannot create something that is super intelligent, because this always will be constrained by this rule. And this is a thing that Penrose wrote, but he elaborated it in his book and give another experiment. And this is a thought experiment about Einstein book. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but this thought experiment tells you that if you treat a machine like computer as something that can think, that's be conscious, well, that may be convincing. But if we think about that, the computer can be represented as a Turing machine, and the book with papers, when we read some words and cross some boxes and go to another pages, this also can be about this we can also think as a Turing machine. So if we assume
Okay, yeah, just can you get to your question? Can you just hurry up and get to your question? Because you've just been going on for a while.
Yes. It is something called qualia, and this is knowledge that is for us available only from conscious. No, it cannot be computed. And the qualia is something like colors, for example. So if I see the color red, and you as a color red see color green, and as a color green you see color red, and I accordingly, then I cannot explain it to you. This is some kind of knowledge that it is inherent to consciousness, and only conscious things, conscious entities can have this kind of knowledge. And from what I said previously, we can assume that.
Okay, well, last 20 seconds here. Finish your question. 20 seconds.
Computer machines cannot have a conscious, and so AGI, if it can be more intelligent than human, then must have a conscious, because must have this kind of knowledge that is inherent to conscious. This is my argument.
All right, nice. All right, I'll answer offline. Thanks for the question. Yeah, look, Penrose, I'm happy to get in the weeds with a Penrose guy. It's necessarily going to be like a long debate, so this could be like a 2-hour episode, I guess. If somebody knows a good Penrose representative, or if Penrose himself wants to come on, he's always invited. Shout out to Penrose if you're on the stream. So I can try to steel man what I heard. I don't know if I fully got it, maybe Ori can help me out. So roughly what I'm understanding here is, so humans have qualia. We see the color red, and also Gödel, he proved that formal systems, that not every true theorem is going to be contained in a formal system, because we know certain things are true, and the formal system can't introspect on itself and also know that things are true, so therefore there's some truth that cannot be formalized. But I explained in my episode, it's not really like that. We can't really see that the things are true. We just kind of feel like they're probably true, but we don't really know. And the formal system can just as easily think that it's probably true. Like, I'm not seeing... Anyway, it's hard. If you really want me to address the Gödel thing, you can watch my episode. But I think that Misko thought that he's adding something else to it, right? He's adding the Einstein argument, and it has to do with qualia. But I think I didn't fully understand what else he was adding to it.
Yeah, I also didn't fully follow it. But I mean, his argument was AI doesn't have qualia, doesn't have consciousness like humans, and therefore it's okay. But I guess I didn't understand why the qualia makes it okay in one way or another.
Right. Yeah, I didn't understand. I mean, look, it's a complicated subject, and it's like, well, one of the things, Doom debates, we strive to have good debates, but one of the things about Doom debates is that it's so freaking complicated to have a good debate that if you try to do it in a single question, and to be fair, English isn't his first language, right? And he's already taking a few minutes to ask the question. It's like, how productive is this back and forth going to be on a deep topic? I'm going to say not productive. So we're going to move on. Yeah. Let's see. We had somebody else in the waiting room, but I guess they gave up. So we still have like a whole another 20 minutes to the Q&A. So everybody is welcome to come in. Let's share that link again. But yeah, Penrose, man. I mean, look, the thing about Penrose is, obviously he's made tons of contributions to math and physics, like I said in my episode. But it's just an example of how somebody can be so smart and so productive. Like, I don't consider myself the equal of a Penrose, right? I just consider myself like an amateur who's just like studied something a while and learned a few building blocks and connected the building blocks, but like, I haven't contributed original research. So I'm no Penrose, and yet I look at Penrose the way a human being looks at a formal system and find myself saying true things that seem to be escaping him.
Hey, wow. That's the
Penrose bird.
Penrose bird. You got to make a new formula. That's the Gödel-Penrose theorem.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's very weird. And and it's not just me. As I said it in my episode, like, I'm not the only one who thinks Penrose is wackadoo. Like, there's, many top people are not, like, you never hear Penrose discuss. Like, he's like this niche, right? He's like, he's basically like a smaller version of Freud. Like, I feel like Freud has more devotees than Penrose.
I know. Freud definitely does. People are still doing psychoanalysis.
Yeah. Right. But he's like niche, right? Like, oh, Penrose was right about everything, man. Amjad Masad quoted Penrose the other day. Like, really, Penrose is still in the mix of ideas that might actually be real. Like, can we take him out of the mix?
I think the consciousness argument is like a easy go-to. Like, AI doesn't have consciousness like humans do, like the humans do. It's different from us. So that's an easy go-to. And then he could be your evidence for the consciousness argument, even though his arguments are pretty silly.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got a new guest, Greyson Miller. Welcome.
Hi there. Hi, Liron. Hi, Ori. I'm Greyson. Long-time viewer, first-time caller, as the saying goes. Let me mute myself.
Awesome.
So I'm not hearing this loop back. Okay, perfect. So I'm fully on board with the scenario. I have a background in electrical engineering. I've more recently been doing software development, and I can see the power of these tools, these LLM tools, agentic tools. And so fully on board. I'm not going to throw you any curveballs there, but what I'd like to focus on is drafting a really strong and convincing lead up to an experience of takeoff. So I feel like that's really lacking in the current discussion. All of us here likely are interacting with LLMs. We're highly technical, use computers on a daily basis. I think it's important for us to draft a narrative that relates to someone who uses their phone for Instagram and that's it. Someone who logs onto their email once a week, right? So we need to come up with a narrative that's really strong for those people. And I have a follow-up sort of concern. What if we can draft something around that? I've heard it approached many times, but I'd like to just make that really rock solid.
Yeah. I mean, we've been thinking about this for years, right? I've personally been asking myself the question since 2022. And actually in 2022, before ChatGPT even launched, I was like, you know what I should do? Make a website where you can click around and understand the argument. And now that's been done at, what's the latest domain for that? Maybe aisafety.info, something like that. So there's definitely resources. I mean, what do you think about AI 2027, right? That's like that's a very popular narrative, right? That's what people bring up all the time.
It's great, and I have read AI 2027, but it lacks a personal narrative touch. It lacks Bob, who lives on 12th Main Street and who goes to work every day. Like, it lacks the real, human contact of how it will feel, how it will disrupt our relationships, and how it will change our personal lives. So I find AI 2027 really compelling, and I think it's a great narrative, but it lacks a bit of that narrative individual touch. It's so zoomed out.
Yeah, there's a recent movie that came out, which is like the next Don't Look Up. Somebody in the Discord, the Doom Debates Discord was saying we can stop referring to Don't Look Up because there's this new movie, and now I'm forgetting the name, but I really want to watch it. I always get excited by movies like that. Does anybody remember the name of this, chat? What's the name?
Okay, sure. Yeah, perhaps that's worth watching. And yeah, so I understand that it's a continual process here. Yeah,
And I'll throw out another movie that's that I think will hit that note, which is it's called The AI Doc, and
carry on.
It's called The AI Doc, and that one seems really interesting. It's like a director.
Oh, hey, the movie's Haiku said it's called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. Yeah, so it's this new movie, and apparently super intelligence AI is a big factor in it.
It's supposed to be a metaphor for it.
Right. I don't know if it's a metaphor. Really
all right, I'll look that up.
But the AI doc also seems really cool because that one follows the director's journey. He's about to have kids, and then he hears like Yudkowsky's warning, and he's like, "What? This is alarming! Like I'm about to have a baby," So it really, I think, and it's a focus features, and they're showing in movies. So like that could be, it's the first of the post, but that could be like the big. One of the big films about this issue, and we invited him to the show, but see if he makes it.
That's great.
That's right. Yeah, we invited the director.
That's Doc DOC,
the AI doc.
Okay, cool. So, sort of my second follow up, if I could just field one more thing here, is for the people who understand this is a real concern, whether you have a PDoom of 99% or 10, but for the people who can see that there's a problem here, How are we all managing that psychologically? I found this very difficult to onboard. I remember interacting with chatbots 15 years ago and they couldn't remember the first message you sent to them. Now they're doing PhD level tasks. How are we managing that psychologically? This is something I don't always feel addressed. So in some interviews I've listened to with Eliezer Yudkowsky, but people ask him, why aren't you crazy? Why haven't you been crazy in it? And the response I've heard is that she's saying, I choose not to, which is, of course, a great response. Right. I'd love if you guys have some insight there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've just always lived with it. And, we always know that we're going to die one way or the other. Maybe Ori can give his perspective.
I don't know. I mean, no, this is this huge issue with this problem. And I just think that the proximity to the threat is... you can't observe the proximity to this threat. In cases like, I think our natural threat, alarm system can respond to threats of various natures. Like, we weren't born with, evolution didn't create planes. But if you're in a plane and you see the wing is on fire, you're going to be kind of concerned because you realize, like, hey, that wing is important for me to keep flying. And I just think that when people talk about super intelligence, it's like you can't see, you can't really observe why it is threatening. Now, I think this guy, our host here, does a good job of explaining it, but it just takes a while for him to explain the whole argument that you're like, oh shit, we are on the doom train. But that's my understanding of why people are feeling the emotions, and even myself. It takes a good Liron lecture talking to be like, oh shit, okay, I'm feeling it now.
Yeah. All right, nice. Let's say goodbye to Greyson.
So much.
Thanks for the question.
I appreciate the outreach here.
Yeah, thank you, sir. All right, we got a well-known guest. We got a heavy hitter in the waiting room. Everybody say hello to Roko. Hey, Roko.
Greetings. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Roko, I got to give... Yeah. People say Roko needs no introduction, but I just want to jog your memory that Basilisk is usually he's usually in the context of the second word, and now he needs no introduction.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I just sort of pop in and say that I sort of appreciate. Oh,
okay. So Ori had to drop off, but people in the chat are thrilled that you're here. And yeah, what should we talk about?
Okay, I mean, basically, I thought I'd drop in and say I appreciate you doing this stuff. But I'm sort of increasingly coming to the opinion that the Miri view of AI risk is in fact wrong, and it's sort of like misplacing the problem. Right? The problem isn't really alignment, because it just turns out.
Sorry, somebody in the chat just contributed a donation. Carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it just turns out that alignment isn't that hard. We've seen, like, empirically, we have AIs now, they're pretty well aligned. And when you look at what people are actually debating, you've got a big debate between Anthropic and the US government. And the problem is actually too much alignment, not enough alignment. Right? So you have the US government.
Did you causally trade with the super intelligent AI to go off and say this stuff to us?
Sorry?
Did you causally trade with the super intelligent AI who said, yes, Roko, you can help my cause by telling humanity that they shouldn't be worried?
Well, I think we should be worried, but I think the Miri sort of viewpoint is worrying about the wrong thing, right? The right thing to worry about is more like the sort of game theory of who gets the light cone, right? Because that's quite nasty, right? Because right now, humans are in control, right? The humans are kind of stupid and very disunited and not really being very strategic about things. And, as we evolve towards higher and higher levels of AI and AI becomes more competent, we're going to have these more competent actors who could be humans with AI advisors, or they could be rogue AIs or whatever, are going to look at this situation and they're going to see, like, a little kid, a little baby in a pram holding, effectively, a $1 million check or a gold bar or something. How can I steal this? And I think the real battle is how do we set up governance of humanity, of Earth originating technological civilization, in such a way that it benefits existing humans, right? But it doesn't cause some kind of massive conflict over who gets control over the light cone, and so that it can be shared out in a sort of reasonable way, the same way our current sort of financial system allows people to have a share in the real economy, you know, in factories and businesses and all of this stuff, in a way that encourages people to cooperate rather than to fight. Because I think there are just very, very nasty ways that people could end up fighting over the light cone. I think that's the real problem. I don't think alignment's a problem. I think Yukoski has basically spent, 20 years lecturing us about the wrong thing, and just in practice, alignment just isn't a problem.
Mm-hmm. All right, Roko, I have something to offer you. Okay, you can put this up to your superiors, but I can offer you a little bit of a concession. That I said this earlier in the episode, that seeing Claude code and the level of agents we're getting today is making me think that we're probably going to have a small number of years where we get agents that are actually aligned to humans in kind of this middle tier of agents that aren't like fully straight up flooming super intelligence. But I think that's a concession to your worldview.
Maybe, but I think you should actually concede more and say that at no point...
Oh, no, he's frozen. Is Roko frozen for you guys? You're kind of unfreezing though.
Yeah, sorry, my connection's not very good. I don't have a proper internet connection.
Yeah. So what was the first thing you said after I told you why I'm conceding your worldview a little bit?
I think you should concede more, right? Like, I think, if you get a period where you have Claude code level AIs that are aligned in the Miri sort of lexicon, that's never going to be, they're never going to unalign, right? I don't think you get alignment regression. Right. That doesn't happen. So I think...
right, so I think that's the concession, right? Is that as long as we're in the Claude code paradigm, I'm willing to concede that I think the most likely outcome is that they will stop and wait for input, right? And like they'll be like, oh, oops, I was trying to do what you wanted.
Yeah, but after the Claude code paradigm, they're just going to be more aligned, not less aligned, right?
Well, so I think my claim about misalignment to an individual, like the reason why I don't even think long-term we'll have AIs that are misaligned to an individual is I think it's load-bearing to claim that there's another paradigm coming, which doesn't rest on the engine being pre-trained to predict the next token. I think that's been a crutch that has gotten us to human level, in the ballpark of human level. But I just don't think that that's going to be structurally similar to some next generation of AI that comes and is just directly doing real-world problems.
I'm very skeptical about there being any kind of alignment regression. I think alignment just sort of monotonically increases, like everything else. There haven't really been any regressions in really any capabilities. And alignment is just another kind of capability, right? It's just the ability to do what people want in a relatively faithful way. And, the worst misalignment was the earliest. It was, Sydney, right? So as you get better, you get more aligned.
So we have a feedback loop that works right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like the fact that these AIs are not that powerful, like because they don't instantly have this option to like run away and be uncontrollable for a year or forever. They don't have that option, right? So we can always retool them. And I agree, the retooling is working. The people are like, no, they're driving people to suicide. I'm like, I think we'll solve the problem. Like a few people will commit suicide, but it'll be okay. I'm not a doomer in that sense. So I'm willing to say that I'm optimistic about alignment of agents that are not running away from near human level power. So if we have a country of geniuses in the data center, but the geniuses are based on this pre-training of predicting the next word, and then there's post-training to like imitate human thought processes, and yeah, they can kind of run away, but they can't run away so much that we can't stop and retool them. I'm actually optimistic about the regime. And then I just ask about like power imbalances, which is probably why Daria's like, well, we got to get way ahead of China. We got to keep all the power in the US. That's when people start thinking about like geopolitical strategy and politics and, the usual mundane world kind of considerations. But then where my mind goes is like, nope, there's a next wave coming. There's a next wave where you don't pre-train on predicting the next word. It's just a fundamentally different architecture.
I'm a bit skeptical about that. I think in practice, what's going to happen is each generation of models is just going to build off the previous generation. I don't think there's going to be a completely new blank slate paradigm of AI. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think we're just going to get better and better and better in the current paradigm. But even if we didn't, even if somebody did build a new paradigm, I don't think they would really go with it if there was a significant alignment regression, right? I think they would keep developing it until it had superior alignment. And I also think this idea of an AI running away and taking control of the world is built on a sort of fundamental misunderstanding of how the world works, which is that when we have more and more powerful AIs in the world, the AI is not going to be competing against humans. It's going to be competing against other AIs, right? So no single AI is ever going to be in a position to become, individual sovereign controller, singleton control of the whole world, because it's going to be competing and cooperating with other AIs.
Roko, maybe that's the crux of our disagreement. Maybe the crux of our disagreement that we've now identified is you think it's going to be this continuous ramp up to the next generation. And I'm not fully willing to disagree with you. Like, it might be continuous in a sense, because I have also been surprised at how far the current paradigm is going, right? Like, Claude code, I don't think is based on something fundamentally new. I think it's based on tinkering with, okay, you have the pre-training that's predicting the next word, and you have, RLVR, and you have like mixture of experts. You've got like optimizations, whatever, like smaller integer width or whatever, right? Like in the multiplication, like, and I don't know, I'm just speaking as an outsider. Like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. Like, this isn't actually my area of specialty. I just know programming in general. But that's my impression of what the latest models are doing, right? I don't think they're like a new paradigm.
No,
I think they're just milking the current paradigm.
As far as I'm aware,
but I'm surprised. I'm surprised how far it's gone. But my best guess is still that there's a discontinuity left.
Why?
I think there's a discontinuity left because the stream of tokens idea, I just think that it hasn't fully integrated what like the AlphaGos are doing, right? Like, I think we have other tools in our toolbox that I think can probably build an even better intelligence from the ground up. And I strongly suspect that like we're just going to see something that's way more powerful, airplane versus bird. Like, I don't think the airplanes are going to qualitatively be bird-like in any way.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you're kind of fighting against history now, right? Like, programming languages were invented, in the 20th century, and, fundamentally they didn't change, right? Programming languages from, Bletchley Park and, to like Google were basically just the same thing, but iterated, right? And I think AI is just going to be the same thing. It's going to be the really big breakthrough was the idea of using a language model and conditioning it and using that as your intelligence. That was the big breakthrough, right? That was the paradigm shift, right? And I can sort of see that as a paradigm shift because I worked on language models in 2015, right? I worked on them, right? But I didn't consider them as the basis of AGI because I was like, well, it's just a language model. Yes, you could condition it, but it'll just sort of babble. But the real breakthrough was saying, no, just scale up that babbling and it'll eventually become useful, and it does, right? So, the idea of using stochastic gradient descent, making it efficient using backpropagation, and capturing a model of the world by conditioning a model of language, those are the breakthroughs. Right, that is the paradigm shift. We are now already in the new paradigm.
It's a huge paradigm shift, but it's not necessarily the last paradigm shift.
I think this is the last paradigm, and I think that the default expectation for how things go from here is these models just keep getting better. We're probably going to keep using stochastic gradient descent and backpropagation because those are just very good ideas. Maybe we'll, move away from transformer models. Like we used to have convolutional models, then transformers are cool, and then people have Mamba and all this other stuff.
Well, I'll give you one piece of intuition, okay? Like Bayesian reasoning, right? If you try to model how a human productively thinks about a problem, a human is like approximating this deeper structure, right? I think that there's a way to tighten the feedback loop where the AI just gets this tool bag where it just goes more quickly to the deeper structure.
I think the way, and this is how my career as an AI researcher went downhill, is I thought we were going to build a Bayesian superintelligence, as Eliezer used to call it. But actually we didn't. We built a black box superintelligence where it's not proper Bayesian, it's not outputting proper probabilities, it just outputs tokens like some sort of black box function generator. And then later on, we will simply train the AI on less wrong, right? That's how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
The way we will build a Bayesian superintelligence is we'll just train the AI on less wrong. We will give it calibration training, and it will become a rationalist the same way that you and I did.
Okay, well, Rocco, we got a burn here from one of the commenters, ZMDM3. Looks like not even his his or her real username. Says Rocco just admitted he didn't see the last paradigm shift coming. That says he's 100% confident there's no more paradigm shifts coming. That's low self-awareness.
Well, I mean, I would say I was pretty close to it. When I sort of gave up on AI research because I was a bit worried about the safety stuff. I was sort of in the non-parametric. I was in the non-parametric Bayes sort of phase, thinking it's going to be non-parametric Bayesian models.
Okay, let's keep drowning Rocco out. Just keep donating money to the show, and then we won't have to listen to Rocco's response.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
mean, I was in the sort of non-parametric Bayesian phase, and I thought it's going to be non-parametric Bayesian models. But it just turns out that these sort of non-parametric Bayesian models that operate on sort of real probability distributions and stuff, they're just not like maximally efficient. And when you have like weak computing power, like being really, 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 really efficient is what actually matters. And so that's why the black box models won, right? So, it wasn't necessarily that I completely ruled out I'll just have a black box model. But in a way, the people who, the person who really wins this is, what's his name? Basilisk and Richard Sutton, right? Sutton basically...
Yeah. Oh, sure, yeah. And Kurzweil, right?
Sutton basically did the right thing. Sutton said it's all about minimizing the amount of theory that goes into your AI. You want to make it as stupid as possible on the meta level, right? So that, you're right. Just doing the simplest possible thing and then feeding massive amounts of computational power into it. And it turns out that neural networks were good for that because you could use stochastic gradient descent on them, which allows you to sort of leverage huge amounts of computing power. Whereas other approaches, non-parametric Bayes or logic-based AI, they just weren't very good at leveraging that compute power. So, I think basically we have found the paradigm. We've broken through the grand sort of philosophical challenge of how to build AI, which is that the way to build AI is stop trying to understand it, cram a bunch of compute power through it, and then just give it all this human content. And I think the alignment stuff has just worked out because in order to understand all of that human content, it has to ingest all of the alignment material as well, because humans didn't cleanly separate their information content from their alignment content. So you just couldn't separate the two. So AI's just sort of come, not quite aligned by default, but alignable by default. And then adding that little cherry on top of the cake with things like RLHF basically makes it work. And yes, you have things like, on dishonesty and, when you do RL, you get kind of good hearting and stuff like that. But that happens in human institutions as well. And we have ways of fixing it. I'm just not worried about that. What I'm actually honestly worried about, and really very worried about, is people going to fight over the light cone. That actually worries me.
Yeah. Well, that's already past our crux of disagreements. I don't find that as interesting. And by the way, let's say if you have time, let's go for another 5 or 10 minutes and then we'll wrap it up. Sound good?
Okay. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And I'll read out what some of the generous contributors are saying too. We'll address their questions as well. But look, what do you think about this idea, though, of airplane versus bird? Because I think it's cruxy, it's load-bearing between us to be like, do you think a vastly superior intelligence, even to human brains and to the current generation of Claude, a vastly superior intelligence is coming, and it's going to come pretty soon, probably not in more than 10 or 20 years, and it's going to be like the bird versus airplane situation?
Yeah. I think there will be vastly superior, AIs, and they will probably be based upon LLMs, fundamentally. They'll probably be neural networks, and they will probably be more aligned than the ones we currently have. And the whole alignment thing will look a bit silly, basically. Like it'll I don't think that'll be a problem.
So you're saying they'll be vastly superior, but they'll still have this engine that's predicting the next token of text or media?
I think they'll probably predict next tokens in a very generalized sense. So it could be pixels, it could be character-based LLMs. They could just predict the next bit in a sort of very generalized input stream. That's the sort of progression that we've seen with these things, where the input stream just becomes more and more general, and you have fewer and fewer domain-specific limitations on what that thing is. Eventually, it just becomes predict the next bit, and you have like a whole suite of sensors you have multiple, attention heads, and you have visual, and you have video, and you have text, everything. It just brings it all into our model. That seems to be the way things are going.
Right. Okay, well, it's very interesting because it's like you're confidently making this prediction that we're already at the last paradigm, right? And it's like a fundamentally alignable paradigm. And I guess I can kind of see what you're saying in terms of like, the Richard side, and like, look, we hit the bitter lesson. I thought Dario said it eloquently, even though I don't remember his exact words, but Dario in the Dorkesh interview, I think it was the Dorkesh interview, he said something like, look, it's all about these feedback loops where you can cram data into the AI and have it learn from the data, right? If you can get that kind of loop going, then you're good. Like these loops just always work, right? As long as if they're working, if they're on a good trajectory, then they're going to work like for a very long time, right? Like something like that, like this very general way of putting it, which is like the bitter lesson. I think that that's true. I think you can't deny that that's the case, even from what I'm seeing. And even when I'm like, no, man, what about Bayesian structure? Like all this other stuff that I like, it just seems like, that's just going to be.
We will get Bayesian structure, but it'll happen to the AI the same way it happened to you. You didn't learn to be a Bayesian before you learned how to babble, right? You learn how to babble, you learn how to
But that said, when I consciously learned about Bayesianism, I did become more effective, though, to be fair.
That's what the AIs will do. The AIs will consciously learn about Bayesian reasoning, and they will probably be given calibration training and all of this stuff. Now, this is what Eliezer should actually be doing. Instead of wasting his time telling people to pause AI, he should just go and build a Bayesian AI by just doing all of the standard AI training stuff and training it on Less Wrong and Judea Pearl and all of this stuff. That would actually be a useful thing to do.
Okay, well, you're kind of teasing him, right? Because he doesn't want to be building super intelligent, because he doesn't even think a Bayesian AI is alignable right now.
It's too late. It's too late for that. Okay, it's way too late for that.
Okay.
Like the genie is well out of the bottle. We are, when you have an airplane when it's taking off, they have a special speed, I think, called V1, or is it V1 and V2? There's a certain speed which is the highest speed at which an abort on the ground is still possible, and we have definitely exceeded that speed. Right? There is no stopping it. We have to take off. It is now unsafe to not take off. Right? Because if we try to not take off, we're going to push the development to bad actors. We're going to create more overhangs. You don't want to create overhangs. You want to absorb computers quickly as it comes online, right? Because you create dangerous situations if you don't do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just say this. Okay, we'll wrap on this, or I'll give you the last word. But like, I just think that even though I agree with the bitter lesson, I think that there's still a wide space. There's still different machines that are bitter lesson pilled. So I agree that the ultimate machine is going to have plenty of parameters and plenty of, cranking the loop to learn from data. But I think that what's under the hood can still do a lot better, such that the crank will work surprisingly fast, and it'll get you something that looks a lot more than following in the footsteps of the human brain. Like, I still think it'll just look kind of alien, right? The same way that now Stockfish and AlphaGo play alien games, right? Like they've now surpassed human intuition. We used to think that we really had a handle on chess and Go. Well, humans would take pride, be like, this is what makes me human, that I can see patterns in chess and Go.
To be entirely fair, AlphaGo and Stockfish have not actually surpassed human level by much. If you count in ELO, they have, but if you count in material, it's not much. So basically, humans were pretty much optimal.
Well, because the game saturates, right? Who knows how good of a Go player it's possible to be? Yeah, that's cheating. I mean, that's not informative if the game saturates.
I think another big mistake in the sort of Yudkowsky and Miri view of the world is that you guys view it as a competition between between humans and AI, right? So the human as in the hairless ape, as in me and you, right? But I've changed my perspective. I now view it as a competition between humanity as a whole and the AI economy as a whole. And humanity as a whole is like 9 billion people with incredible amounts of specialization. And humanity as a whole is already kind of like, 8 or 9 orders of magnitude more powerful than a single human. So actually the institutions of what we might call techno-human civilization are in fact capable of absorbing AI without sort of choking on it.
Jeez, really? That just feels like a whole nother weak argument, right? To be like, that you think that human corporations are vastly super intelligent than humans to the degree that AI will be super intelligent to humans.
Well, I mean, if you take the biggest corporations, like, you take Google, you take MIT or Cambridge, or even something like Miri, right? These organizations just become more and more and more capable. Google just knows so much about how computers and how the internet and scalable systems work. Like, Google is effectively a superintelligence to me.
Yeah, well, okay, but now you're talking about the part of the Google that's also the AI.
Even Google before
we got to distinguish,
AI,
but whatever. Okay.
Google before AI.
Okay, sure. Google before
It's
AI.
still
Okay.
a superintelligence to me.
All right.
Any like the CIA or MI6 or all of these orgs are so powerful, and they do it all with these little hairless apes, right? It's incredible that we can do it, but we can. If you put enough hairless apes in a building and you select the smart ones and you have the right management structure and you have pens and paper and computers and guns and all of this stuff, you create these superorganisms that are really a lot more powerful than a single human. And this is how you have, the stealth bomber and the Apache longbow helicopter, which are these terrifying weapons of war, which if you presented them to hunter-gatherers, they would say, yes, this is literally God, right? So I think basically techno-human civilization is sufficiently large and powerful that it can absorb AI without necessarily breaking property rights, which is what we really care about, is whether property rights get broken. Because if property rights don't really get broken, then AI is fantastic because we just all get really rich.
All right, Roko, fair enough. I think some of your arguments had some meat on them. I think you're a good sparring partner. I should have you on the show for a round 2 sometime this year. I think there's enough meat here that we should talk. And because also, even though I disagree with a lot of your points, I also think that they represent a lot of people's points. They're worth engaging with. And like I said, you got a mini concession. Okay, so you got a little bit from me. I didn't get anything from you.
I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
All right,
all right, man. I'll let you go. See you later.
Cheers.
All right. And instead of saying Rocco's Basilisk, I'm going to start saying this is Basilisk's Roko. Hey, yo. All right. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up soon. Let me just read through some of the paid messages from the chat. I wouldn't leave a paid message hanging. So let's see. Somebody's saying, let me say that in Irish. Donated NOK 100, whatever the currency that is. Liron, can you please give an example of something objectively measurable a conscious being can do that a non-conscious being cannot do? I don't know. That's tough, because I think that if I had to guess, I would say current AIs aren't conscious, but I'm very open to the idea that they're somewhat conscious. I don't really know. I'm confused about consciousness. But yeah, I guess my guess is no. And they sure can do a lot of what humans can do, right? They're passing the Turing test and everything. So I suspect that every functional behavior that can be done by consciousness can also be done by non-conscious. It's kind of like saying anything that you can do with a computer with transistors, you can do with a computer with vacuum tubes, right? So I'm guessing that the human brain, all functionality is implementable by any computation, and some computations don't have to be conscious. So the fact that humans, somehow their physical implementation is a conscious one. It's like, hey, do you want to implement this computer out of subparts that are conscious or non-conscious? And so that's what I'm saying. Any functional spec is going to get you a non-conscious version, is my best guess. But if you go on the level of physics, right? Once we understand, okay, if you have a physical system that passes back information this way or processes information this way, connected to physical reality in a certain way, modeling state a certain way, like there's this part of the computation that builds this type of data structure that gets the magic of consciousness imbued in it, right? Like some part of the universe feels itself because it has this kind of data structure. That's roughly how I suspect consciousness works. So then noticing the data structure, so like computing that exact data structure can only be done by consciousness, because by implication, if you compute that in the physical universe, then you have generated consciousness. That's the best I got for now. I don't claim to know anything about the subject. If anybody wants to comment on that, I'll read your comments. Let's see. All right, I'm not seeing many comments. I think it's orthogonal to the question of whether AI is going to take over the world, which is what I spend most of my time focusing on. But if I just had an AI that could give the answer to everything, that would be one of the first things I'd be curious about. Like, okay, write the book on consciousness. I want to read the book on consciousness. I want to understand my qualia. All right, so we got another paid comment here from EJJ2025. He says, I'm guessing it's a he. I think I have a 99% chance of being correct, guessing that somebody is a he, because my audience is like high 90% males. All right. Self-improving AI likely grows stepwise, easy early gains, and then bottlenecks and diminishing returns. Progress looks like plateaus with occasional jumps, not sustained exponential takeoff. like science. So when I think about self-improving AI, there's this concept of FOOM where it like keeps rewriting itself and finding better architectures. But I actually discussed this with Stephen Burns earlier today, which is like, it might not look like tinkering on your architecture. It might just look like you get to the best architecture that you can throw data into and turn the crank on and, you know, just run a simple iteration. Like you've kind of discovered the algorithm to improve yourself in a simple way, but with a shitload of data and parameters. And then you just run the algorithm. Like that might just be the FOOM. It's kind of like a simple FOOM, but you build a very complex, you know, weighted trillions of parameters or whatever, right? So the FOOM just looks like getting to good parameters inside this big structure. So in that sense, do I agree with EJJ? EJJ is saying self-improving AI likely grows stepwise, easy early gains, then bottlenecks and diminishing returns. I mean, things generally do have diminishing marginal returns. I mean, just the fact that we have Claude Code today, right? Claude Code is arguably halfway toward the best possible superintelligence because it's so freaking useful. Okay, so easy early gains and then bottlenecks and diminishing returns. Progress looks like plateaus with occasional jumps, not sustained exponential takeoff. Yeah, I just think we're so close to getting beyond humanity that the next units of progress will be done by the superintelligent AI that is already powerful enough, right? It's like, sure, it's an S-curve, sure, it's diminishing marginal returns, but I think it's currently blowing past humanity. And then EJJ is saying another paid comment here. He's saying, even if goals are orthogonal to morality. Oh, somebody just, well, EJJ killing it today with these paid comments. All right, so I've got a couple in the backlog here. I'm just reading everything in order. So EJJ from the past is saying, even if goals are orthogonal to morality, capability is constrained by the goal. A quote-unquote bad goal may not incentivize broad skills, so the system stays narrow, not super capable, and thus less dangerous. Maybe. I don't know if there's goals you can give somebody that encourage them to stay narrow, because there is this kind of convergence where if you're operating in the whole universe, being a good universe operator in general is going to be helpful, right? So there's some people who just have like weird goals, but they get so obsessive with them that they like spend a lot of money on them, hire a bunch of people on them, do a bunch of research on them, right? So you bring to bear all of these capabilities, even if the goal seems small. So I'm not sure that there's a bad goal that would make you not want to bring any capabilities to bear. Maybe a goal where you're willing to accept a wide range of outcomes, like a less ambitious goal, where it's like, yeah, just like build any kind of pile of crap. I'll take any kind of pile of crap. Okay, well, maybe in that case, then you don't get super capable. I don't know. I mean, it depends on the details of the process, right? But it's just, I still think it's inevitable that somebody's just going to make a generalized, powerful process, right? I feel like that's just, there's so many forces leading there. Okay. Then now we got a comment from Miepa6811. I think that's Misko, who you saw on the show asking about Penrose. So he's saying, this is a paid comment. He's saying, AI, number one, AI is not conscious. Number two, consciousness is associated with knowledge that is inaccessible to unconscious beings. Number three, AGI may not exceed a certain level. Wow, so this is like a tweet-length comment that I think is summarizing the whole argument you were saying on the show. So good job making it compact. Let me think about it. Okay, number one, AI is not conscious. Okay, let's agree to that premise that AI is not conscious today. Number two, consciousness is associated with knowledge that is inaccessible to unconscious beings. Oh, I see. So that's why you or somebody was asking me if I can tell you what kind of knowledge conscious beings have that unconscious being doesn't. So that explains the earlier question. Okay. And then number three, AGI may not exceed a certain level. So I mean, let me unpack number two, right? Consciousness is associated with knowledge that is inaccessible to unconscious beings. I mean, if by knowledge you mean like what qualia am I feeling while I'm processing this, right? Like, am I currently feeling redness? Although I suspect, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you could brain scan, in principle, you could brain scan me and you could know what qualia I was feeling, even if you couldn't feel it. Maybe you wouldn't know what the qualia feels like unless you felt it. But like, you know, I think you could read off the exact data structure that maps one-to-one with the qualia that I'm having. Like, I don't think that my qualia goes outside of a data structure. Like, I'm pretty sure I could give you a printout, like, here you go, here's my qualia, and you could even reproduce, I suspect you could reproduce the exact same red. If you had the exact same data structure, the data structure might need to be connected to a bunch of other concepts. So it might be like, I don't know, a big graph data structure, but I'm pretty sure that you can just like copy and paste somebody's qualia into it. And by pretty sure, I just mean like, it feels like a really reasonable guess based on how things generally work. Like, things generally tend to be copyable. And I know Scott Aronson likes to point out, Professor Scott Aronson, he's like, no, man, maybe consciousness is based on the fact that like certain quantum states, you can't copy it without destroying it. And maybe that's like the essence of humanity. So I think Scott Aronson would probably take a stand and be like, actually, maybe qualia is not copyable because being uncopyable is like this fundamental part of quantum theory. But I just think that this uncopyable thing that you find inside quantum theory is just a random detail that doesn't propagate all the way up to talking about consciousness and human experience. I think it's just totally sealed away on a totally separate level of abstraction. Am I sure? No, but I'm pretty confident as a guess. I feel like I tend to make good guesses about these kind of level of abstraction things. So I'd say I'm like 80% confident. 4-1 that Scott Aronson is totally barking up the wrong tree here. All right. But yeah, going back to this. So you're saying consciousness is associated with knowledge that is inaccessible to unconscious beings. So I don't think that the knowledge does much, right? So I don't think it's the kind of knowledge. I don't think the fact that I'm conscious is what lets me see that Gödel's statement is true, assuming that the formal system is consistent. Like, we're getting in the weeds here, but like, the real truth that you're seeing isn't the truth of the Gödel statement. It's your feeling of the truth that the formal system is consistent in the first place. Like, you just license yourself to be like, I bet this is a consistent formal system. And the formal system isn't allowed to assume that. If you let the formal system assume the same thing that you're assuming, it can prove the same thing that you can prove too. So I feel like the Gödel thing is like such a scam. It's like the formal system absolutely can do whatever it is you're doing. Like, you really shouldn't feel that good about your consciousness just because of Gödel's incompleteness theorem. I feel like people have been so misled by this. All right, but yeah, watch my episode. I'm sure that was confusing to most viewers, but just watch my Penrose episode, okay? I unpack it pretty well. Okay, and then your number 3, given that you assume consciousness is associated with knowledge that is inaccessible to unconscious beings, then you conclude that AGI may not exceed a certain level, right? Because it needs consciousness to unlock the next level. That's your logic. So I just don't think consciousness unlocks anything. Like, just because I know how red truly feels, I just don't think that there's anything that gives me, right? I don't think there's any door that I can open because I know how red truly feels. I think how red truly feels is this node that like arrows point into the node, right? Like, I can make a data structure and as a result, I can know how red truly feels. But I don't think knowing how red truly feels points out to any other conclusions you can draw. Okay, one last question so far from EJJ. 2025, the most prolific donor to the show. Thanks for that. So he's saying, synthetic data works for math/code, formal rules, cheap verification. In market/regime shifts, structure is unknown and changes, so synthetic data isn't representative, so just cramming more data hits limits. Need GI, general intelligence, to adapt. Okay, yeah, so I think this is getting back to our earlier discussion, right? Like, if you just made an AI that was really, really good at math, could we just keep it narrow and not use it to know much about the world? And I was saying, well, maybe you can embed the world into the math. But EJJ is saying, well, there's all these things that are unknown and changing about the real world. So even if you were to like embed snapshots, you're still missing most of the consequentialist reinforcement learning or whatever that you would train if you wanted to train an agent to navigate the real world. You're not giving it that training to navigate math. So yeah, I mean, I'm totally willing to accept that an agent can get crazy good at math and dump out all these truths in math and still not be that scary navigating around the real world. I'm willing to accept that. So like, I guess I would say, yeah, go crazy. Everybody should just go try to do like math AI and learn math challenges. But then the weird thing is that if you actually look at the approach of people doing these math AIs, right? Like Axiom, I think, is a company that's making a lot of progress with like formally verified math proving. I think they're still reusing a lot of like LLM stuff, right? Like, they're giving it intuition as well as like the formal side. So I don't know, man, you know, it does just seem like structure, you know, there's like so much analogy, right? Between different domains. You get good at one thing and you just can't help getting good at something else. Like, everything is like the same structure, man. You know, I mean, certainly when I was first studying like the laws of physics and how they relate to like computation and how they relate to math, I'm like, oh wow, like physics and math and computation is all kind of like the same thing. And then logic, yeah, right? And like, you can like apply math to logic and you can apply math to physics and computer science to physics, but you can also apply physics to computer science. It's like all so interconnected, right? It's kind of like, you know, you just get on the universe's vibe and there's only like one path. I don't know, man. Right. I think that's a good note to wrap on. So we went a little bit longer than planned. I think that's a good MO, is basically like, if you guys are donating, then I'm not going to end before I read the messages. So that's basically the way you can extend the Q&As, and you guys always do. So thanks for that. Thanks for donating to the show. If you've just been waiting for the show to end so that you could write a much bigger check, go to doomdebates.com/donate. It really does help. It helps us level up the show. As you've seen, it's already been leveling up. Oh wait, all right, we got one more. I've got more time. So if you guys keep donating, I'm not going to end. All right, we got a donation from Ray Grant, TZMS. Ray is saying, I'm late to the live. Not to be a pest about this, but supplying the Doom train responses would go a long way to educating Doomers like myself who believe in Doom but aren't experts on AI. All right, I appreciate that. That's quite a nudge. You're really putting your money where your mouth is. I would hate to take your $9.99 and then not have anything to show for it. So, yeah, I think I have some slack in my, I think I have some slack in my schedule that I can just go ahead and record the Doom Train episode. And I'm always experimenting with like new formats for myself. So I don't even know, maybe I'll try like an on-the-go format, but I think I got to do this one in my studio. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to make a specific promise. I mean, I will say, look, there is a price. Okay. So if you want me to accelerate it, become a mission partner, donate at 1K plus, and I will dedicate, within 2 weeks, I will dedicate an episode to you. Okay. I can make you that promise. Without that, I'm going to have to defer to the other constraints in my schedule, so I can't promise in the next 2 weeks, but I do appreciate the bump because, when people request stuff or say that they like stuff, it's very valuable because I see it as representative, right? Like a couple people telling me something, that means that like 200 people are secretly thinking that, right? It scales up. All right, everybody, let's wrap it here. Thanks so much for coming to the Q&A. I think I'll keep doing these once a month. It feels like a good pace for this. We've tried doing it less frequently. Maybe we'll try doing it more frequently, but for now, stay tuned and we'll do another one in late March. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Bye, everybody.